of your favorite show. At producer, 5'11" from Blanchester, the Cow Killer, Casey McCollister. And comic engineer, standing at 4'8", the pride of the West Side, Elliot Rearing. And your host, weighing 150 pounds, soaking wet, from Hamilton, Ohio, Ace Fowler.
Are you happy or are you not? Most of you are happy because it's Friday. The question I was asking is whether or not you are pleased with the NFL draft. I'm sure that the folks in Atlanta right now are wondering when they woke up today if they didn't have a chance to see the draft. Could you imagine waking up today, maybe opening up the Atlanta Journal? That's still a thing. I don't know if that's a newspaper anymore or not, but if it is, if you imagine opening that up and being like, wait, we did what? We'll talk about that, obviously. Amarius Mims goes to the Bengals. That will be a part of the headlines. We'll get into that. And we'll probably spend all day talking about the NFL. Why? Because last night, if there wasn't anything more apparent, the NFL draft had thousands upon thousands of people in Detroit surrounded around a stage to see no sports. None. Just guys that might play for their favorite team. Cheering on. My favorite thing about the NFL draft here before we get started officially is this. People just cheer in the stands. They just yell for random guys they've never heard of before. Or they act like they know. And then they get upset at guys they'd never heard of before. So we shall find out today where we stand on that. As always, this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Trace Fowler. We got the cast of characters as usual, plus Jeremiah today. I don't know what substance Jeremiah is going to bring to the table. I'm very forefront in saying that. However, before we get going into real serious sports talk, Jeremiah, I must ask you two things. One, please put the camera on him really fast for the YouTube audience. Please. Two things. That microphone, usually, you got to turn it around.
Turn it around?
No, well, yeah, the microphone.
Flip the head of it. No.
Got you, okay.
No, you got
It's
you can twist it. You can twist it.
This is great for the radio audience.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. Okay, so we're learning new things every day, ladies and gentlemen.
You're pointing it the other direction, too.
It's still not. Still not right.
Yeah, it's still not right, but we'll get it fixed. We'll
Jay.
get it fixed. But I was told that you're a big WWE wrestling fan. Maybe Kenner might be a wrestling guy as well. Who knows? Maybe that'll be the case. But we have a full list of programming today. We have Off the Bench, obviously from 10 to 12. Right after that, we have Dialed In with Tom Brenneman, and then Kenner and Kev, although Kev is absent today, so it will be just Justin Kenner. Will be on right after that, all on our YouTube channel. I have Brooks Austin, a guy that I've been fortunate enough to know covering Georgia football for quite some time, a big offensive line guy. He's going to come on the show at 10:40 and give some insight on Amarius Mims. Brooks Austin's been he's there. He's not at all the practices because they're closed practices, but he's on the field. He's right there tight with the program, and he's an offensive line guy, so nobody better to talk about Amarius Mims than him. I guess I'll just ask you, not that we can get into it right away before we get into headlines, because as we know, we want to stay on track here. But are you feeling okay this morning, Elliot?
Feeling great.
Right.
I feel great.
You look good.
Well, thanks. Gee. I feel great. I will say, watching the draft is usually it's fun. I had a little draft party and that was fun, I guess. The set design was really cool in Detroit. Whatever they did, that they showed like the little montage of them building that giant thing. That was awesome. So shout out to Detroit. I also found it funny every time anything happens in Detroit. Just bring out Eminem. Just bring him out. Somebody call him, bring him out. And he comes out of his hole every single time anything happens in Detroit. So shout out to Eminem. He was there. I think he said, "Let's go Lions," and then he left.
Are you suggesting that's tired? Or
No, I'm just saying it's funny. Like if we had a guy like that, I'm sure he'd be our mascot.
We got Nick Lachey. What are you kidding? We got Nick Lachey.
Yeah, Nick Lachey, Eminem, same guy.
Will Cincinnati get a draft?
I don't think they are the same guy at all.
I think that was the point.
That was the point. That was a joke. Will Cincinnati get a draft in the next 15 years? Yay or nay?
No.
No?
There were so many people there. So many people there. I don't think we could fill that. I don't know where we put that many people.
By the way, our guy is Bootsy Collins.
Yeah, okay. Bootsy Collins.
Yeah.
I always think like we could do it like TQL Stadium or like Great American Ballpark or something like that. Like you could figure out a way to to get everyone in there. I went to the one in Cleveland.
Yeah,
back
that
in-
would be something. Not to cut you off, but yeah, Major League Baseball opening up the doors to let the NFL come in and run some big event.
Well, I don't know if you
Don't
do
put
this,
it past them. I mean,
money,
don't put
but money talks.
It
Like if
does.
the NFL wants to pay Great American Ballpark $1 million,
Right.
hey, can we have a venue fee? I'm sure they'll accommodate.
No, I know.
But yeah, I think I'll say yes. We get one in 15 years. We'll get one in 15.
Usually it's like at like an outside event though. So
It is outside. I don't think they'll put it in the stadium.
I don't think it would.
I say we just line it up right there on the Brent Spence.
Right on the bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
Bring them in on ferries, right?
Yeah.
All the players.
That would be that would be great.
Remember that ridiculous thought they had in Vegas that they were going to
Yes.
like legitimately put guys on like what was it? It was at Caesars or the Bellagio or something?
I don't know, but
anyway,
yeah,
there was like some terrible idea where
they were gonna boat the players across the pond.
Yeah, it's like, come on, man. What are we doing here?
correct.
They do
Do
make
we,
it a
do
big.
we
they-
need to make this like that ridiculous?
They do make it a big show. How many of those picks do you think? Like, there's the 10-minute clock, and towards the end, usually they don't use the whole clock. Definitely for the first several picks, they're using a majority of it. Do you think the producers go over to teams like, hey, we know that you have this pick made. You're just going to sit here for 10
No,
minutes?
I think like everyone gets mad at like the team.
Yeah.
Like what are the Bears doing? Why isn't their picking? The Bears pick has been in.
Yeah.
It's been in. Like they're just like, hey, we're gonna use this whole 10 minutes up, and it's all a show. It's all a facade. Like, and they tell the Bears, hey, we're gonna put a camera in your room. Can you guys just act serious for like 10 minutes and then shake hands after the pick was done? Like, hey, good job. We didn't think we were gonna get the guy. You had the whole board, but we didn't think we were gonna get our guy.
I did want to make a jab at the Bears last night when I seen the video footage of them like all clapping and giving
yeah.
high fives and shaking hands. It's like it does look a little preposterous. The idea that you get to make the pick, guys.
You can pick literally anyone in the world.
You literally can't do anything wrong. There's no reason to be in there like high fiving each other like you did something good. You literally put the name on there. And speaking of which, why do they get 10 minutes on the first pick? Can we just make it to where can we make it to
because
where
it's a show.
Well, that's the thing is like the Bears they're not using 10 minutes. The Bears give their pick to the NFL. The NFL is just like, all right, we gotta do our dance. We gotta tap a roo up there, and then they go let the 10 minutes and go. Oh, the pick's in. The pick's in.
Yeah. Who had the best war room? I was looking around to judge who had the best the draft scene.
Yeah.
My answer is the Colts. The Colts had, I think, 2 massive whiteboards that surrounded each wall. And each one had little tiny things. Like, it was filled. 2 million words were written on these giant whiteboards. By far the best draft room of the night. 100%. There was one of them had, like, every guy was in the same attire. And maybe that was the Eagles' draft room. I don't know whose draft room it was, but every single person in there had the same exact suit and tie on.
Are you against uniforms?
No, but it was just wild to see. Nobody else was doing that.
Do you have
I-
uniforms
remember-
at the parochial schools you went to?
We did have that. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you a fan of that?
I didn't
loved
care.
It.
It was just a shirt and a tie, or just a shirt and khaki shorts.
By the way, this is something that public school kids would always make fun of private school kids for. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you guys got to wear a uniform. There was nothing better than wearing a uniform. You just wore the clothes were just like you had like three pairs of clothes and you just wore them every day. Like you just woke up, threw them on, and let's go. Let's rock and roll. No,
What was your uniform?
It was khaki pants and a polo.
Yep.
How's that?
I can't
easy.
get behind that, but
I
that's
can't.
tough.
No.
I liked it. You had
was
7
great.
You had what? I had 5 polos, and each
I
day
will
had
say
a
it
polo.
looks nice. I do think it looks nice. I think that there's something to that, but yeah, I just and maybe I would change my mind if I was stuck to where I had to wear polo and shorts every day, like I already do. So maybe,
Right.
maybe
But-
so.
You asked about the war room. Mm-hmm. It made me remember Bill Belichick's war room.
Oh yeah.
It was just him.
Yeah.
It's just him, and now he's got to go to teams and go like, I swear I'll be collaborative, and they're like, yeah, we saw you on television by yourself and your cat or whatever, your dog,
his dog.
your
It
dog
was
just
his
sitting
dog
right
manning the
next to you.
computer.
Like every other room has 40 voices in the room. Bill's just like, it's just me and my laptop, just me.
Super chat real quick by
Yeah.
Drew Garrison. A YouTube video of Elliot in his school uniform exists, and he and a friend break down Trump versus Hillary. Yeah, it was for a journalism class. That was for a journalism class.
I bet that was riveting content.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great.
How many? You could always tell the folks in high school that took the group projects very seriously, and it was like 1 out of every 10 folks in the class would do that. And
Yeah.
they just perfectly always found themselves in the opposite groups. I don't know if the teachers did that on purpose, at least in my classes, where it was like, we know we have 10 kids in here that are going to take this seriously. We need to make sure they're all split up. We can't have a dream team because if we put 4 traces together, there's 0 chance that thing's going to come back.
Oh,
so
none.
I think no?
No, 100%. I don't know, Elliot, as an outspoken, charismatic guy,
Sure.
when it came to group projects, I had a role. I didn't do any of the groundwork.
Neither did I.
I didn't put any of the PowerPoint together. I didn't do any of the research. You give me the cue cards, and I'll stand in front of class and I'll talk.
That was
sounds
me,
like
baby.
all of us on this show.
That was
like-
me, baby. I would do that, and I'd also be the vibes guy. So whenever we had a group meeting, I'd bring the snacks, I'd do whatever. I'd make sure all the workers were happy, and I would sit there and I'd watch them work. And boy, were they good at it.
Right? They would just sit there and be like, I don't want to speak in front of class. You're like, oh, don't worry, I'll do that. You do the project.
Yeah.
I'll talk in front of the class.
You calculate everything. You get it all set and nice and neat and print it out and do your thing. I'll take care of that part.
Yeah,
That's what I did too.
You know what's beautiful
College is
about
great.
you know what's beautiful about the group projects is it has there's some similarities to that in life as well, right? You have the outside sales reps and then you have obviously the technicians. The outside sales reps look at the technicians and are like, golly day, there's nothing I could think about in the world that I would want to do less than have to sit in the office and put all this together and blah blah blah. And then to be fair, if you got to go in front of a group to talk, the technicians, and I'm not saying that there isn't crossover, of course there is, but sometimes the technicians probably look at the folks that sit there and talk and they're like, there's nothing that I would rather do less in the world than talk in front of all these people. So we just did a nice full segment of very serious sports talk.
We did.
Let's do this. At least give them a little bit of a tease. I don't know if we'll get all the way through the headlines, but can we get some headlines to make these people know that this is a very serious sports talk show?
Sports talk show. So yeah, we'll get through some headlines here. I don't know if we'll get through them all, but we'll get through some. If you didn't watch the Reds game, I don't blame you. Everybody kind of knew it was almost a forfeit type of situation. You're playing one of the best pitchers in baseball, and we have Nick Martinez. With all due respect, he did his job. He went 6 innings, gave up 11 hits, and boy, pretty much all of them were pretty hardly hit. But the Phillies beat us 5-0. Again, I think the bullpen did okay after Martinez. Was just that one inning of Martinez, he got rocked. I think he gave up 4 in 1 inning, and that was pretty much it. Let's see. Wheeler went 6 innings. He gave up 1 hit. He struck out 8. He was just on his game. The Reds are back at it tonight in Texas, where Graham Ashcraft will face off against Nathan Eovaldi. Quick shout out to the 3 Reds who got a hit yesterday. I made a note of that. Nick Martini, Santiago Espinal, and Luke Maley. Those were the 3 Reds to accumulate a hit. Shout out to them.
Espinal's on a hot streak.
He is. He is on a hot streak. I think Nick Kirby tweeted he's had a hit or he's reached base safely in 6 of 7. So shout out to Santiago Espinal. Around the league, the Athletics, they beat the Yankees, splitting that series 2 games each. They won 3-1. Dodgers, they sweep the Nationals 2-1. They won 2-1 and then sweep the Nationals. The Rockies, they split with the Padres on a 4-game set. They won 10-9 yesterday. The Mariners beat the Rangers 4-3, so Rangers are coming off a loss heading into this series as well. The Cubs, they swept the Astros. They won 3-1 yesterday. The Royals, and I'm only mentioning this because I had money on the Blue Jays. The Royals beat the Blue Jays 2-1, and they only played 5 innings. That's a tough bet to lose. The Brewers, they beat the Pirates 7-5, and the Twins 4-game sweep the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox have lost 7 in a row. That's tough. That's a brutal fan. That's a brutal fan base to be a part of. NBA, Magic destroyed the Cavaliers 121-83. Paolo Banchero, he led the way with 31 points, 14 boards. Suggs and Wagner, they were efficient as well. They get a game on the board, now trail 2-1 in the series. 76ers, they get a bounce-back game as well, winning 125-114 over the Knicks. Joel Embiid, he dropped 50 points. Tyrese Maxey, he added 25. Knicks lead 2-1 in that series. The Lakers, we talk about it every time. Reed warned you yesterday. They got off to a double-digit lead yet again for the 3rd straight game, and they blow it yet again. They lose again. Nuggets are 3-0 in the series. They won 112-105 last night. Aaron Gordon scored 29 points and added 15 boards. Jokic, 24 points, 15 boards. LeBron, after the game, when asked what it's like being down 3-0, quote, "It's just basketball." It's just basketball.
It does make him. It just does make him appear like like a hypocrite at times.
Yeah.
If we're being completely honest.
Yeah.
I like LeBron. I know that there's some people that dislike LeBron because
Love LeBron, my favorite player.
because there's this nostalgia with the Michael Jordan era, and you don't like to hear people comparing him to Michael Jordan. I get all that. I'm not here to debate that. That's for other sports talk shows. However, I do like LeBron, but I do think that there are times in his career where he's come off of as a little sour, like he complaining about refs, or if he's doing this in the post game, like he wouldn't have said that if they were up 3-0. It's just basketball.
Correct.
But
I mean, I think as a team leader, that's just not like LeBron's. So when you look at the Lakers, the first player you think of is LeBron James.
That's right.
And for LeBron James to be down 3-0 against the Nuggets in the playoffs and to just say it's just basketball, his first words were it's just basketball, like that's not. You don't look at a leader and
this
hear
is
him say
fair.
that.
That's right. That's right.
It's fair. I mean,
that's
it's
right.
fair. But I think that LeBron knows inevitably it's irrelevant, and I think that's where they're at. I think he's basically waving the white flag there, right? That's what he's
right.
doing.
They were never.
Or maybe
they
he's
were-
setting him up. Maybe he's setting him up. Maybe he's like, you know what, we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to this press conference. We're going to make it act like we don't care at all. We're going to get back in the gym tonight, boys. We're going to get him.
I think he's getting old and he's exhausted and I think he's nearing the end, as he said, and I think
That
it may
is.
be sooner than we think.
Yeah, I
ready
think
to
he's
play
seen that
with the
Bronny
sun.
James might not be playing in the NBA after
Yeah.
all. He's like, all right, I'm out. What do you got anything left? We got a clock that we got to keep on. All right. Well, here's the thing about radio. There are ads to play, and unfortunately for us, we ran out of time to get you all the way through the headlines. When we come back, we'll do headlines. We'll talk about Amarius Mims and more. That on 1410 Wing AM. All right, welcome back into Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Didn't quite get there. I knew when we got on the subjects of school uniforms and group projects, we probably weren't going to get to very serious sports talk early enough to get all the way through the headlines. But you
That's
know what?
okay.
Let's stay on track.
That's right.
Let's stay on track. We're going to keep it moving on this lovely Friday edition of
Oh,
Off
yeah.
the Bench. Headlines, Elliot.
So here's a couple more headlines. NHL, the Hurricanes win 3-2 over the Islanders. They lead the series 3-0. Panthers, they beat the Lightnings 5-3. They lead their series 3-0 as well. I added some NFL draft nuggets as a part of the headlines. We have 6 quarterbacks. 6 quarterbacks were taken in the first 12 picks. That has never happened before in the modern draft era, is what they called it yesterday. 14 picks consecutively were offensive players, and that had never happened before in the modern draft era. Most offensive picks, I believe, ever. Notable picks, obviously the Bengals. We're going to get to him in a second. J.J. McCarthy went to the Vikings. Bowers, he went to the Raiders. The Bills traded their 28th pick to the Chiefs, who subsequently drafted a wide receiver, Xavier Worthy, to help Patrick Mahomes. Also, per Diana Rossini, Kirk Cousins was not made aware, was not given a heads up, was not told the plan that the Falcons, who just signed him to a 4-year contract, were going to draft Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th overall pick. Tough scenes. I laughed out loud when they did it. Laughed out loud. Not only because he was drafted ahead of JJ, which he probably should have been, in my opinion, but because, again, it's just organizational malpractice. I think Reed said he was going to be, 28 when he first starts?
Well, at the end of Kirk Cousins' contract, yeah, Michael Penix will be 28 years old.
I mean, there was the funny video of the GM explaining it to the owner, and the owner was just sitting there
Not
like,
having it.
"What's going on? You drafted a quarterback after we just signed a franchise quarterback?"
Yeah.
Ugh.
I know this is gonna be bad radio per se, but I sent a clip to Casey. We'll run it right now because it's too good not to show.
Sure.
But this happens every year. You always have the video of somebody just being in disbelief of a pick. I think the one year it was Sean McVay, if you remember back when I think it was
When
the
Bill
Patriots.
Belichick.
Oh, yeah.
When the Patriots selected whoever that it was they selected, and they literally caught McVay doing his own little presser there with the open public, and they told him who he picked, and McVay just had no choice but to just be audibly gasped at the idea that they picked him. They were like, oh, we had a 5th round grade on him. But this poor kid, staying up late. By the way, the draft takes 6 hours long for the first round. They do a great job of extending it literally as far as you possibly can. But this poor kid stayed up to watch the Falcons take their selection, and just watch this.
We're gonna have a quarterback. Okay. This is it! I've been waiting for this pick for 4 months. Roma Tunze.
Westgate. Or who? Westgate.
Poor kid.
Oh,
Oh.
My favorite part's right here. My favorite part's it's coming right there.
That poor kid.
He has no clue what just happened, and neither did the adults. I mean, they were trying to justify this thing over and over again on the NFL draft, and they just couldn't figure out a way to do it. We'll talk about that on the draft reactions. I don't want to get too far into that.
Okay.
We'll
We'll
waste
do it.
the
We'll
whole
do it at some
segment
point.
here,
We'll
and
do it
we'll
at some
burn
point.
through all the time that we have for headlines. Elliot, we're very sorry for butchering your headlines, but go
That's
ahead.
okay. No, that was it. That's all I had. I
Okay.
also find it very funny during the draft how every pick is made legitimately 10 minutes before it's shown on television. You
Right.
just go on Twitter and it's just ruined. So I started doing that last night. I was at my friend Zach's house, and we all had a rule when the Bengals when it got to like pick 15, everyone's
Phones down.
Phones are on the table, face down. We're not getting anything. So that was a good rule. But yeah, listen. I thought last night's draft was pretty enjoyable from what I can remember of the past several. So I mean, maybe that's because the Bengals haven't had a good pick, but
Shout out the NFL because, like you said at the top of the show, no sports are being like the NBA playoffs are going on, the NHL playoffs are going on, the first month of Major League Baseball is going on, and everyone that's a sports fan's eyes are glued to the television
That's crazy.
watching a league that will not play for 5 months.
Yeah.
That will not play for 5 months.
And there's no doubt in my mind. Do we not think at some point this is going to be a week-long thing that's just on the weekdays? Like there's no reason that they shouldn't do that. People are looking for something to do on weekdays at night to where nothing's all that going on that they find all that exciting. They're going to eventually, I would think, in my mind, I would start that NFL draft on Tuesday night for the first round, Wednesday night for the second round, Thursday night for the third round,
Yeah.
and then the Friday night and Saturday can be your mop-up picks that only like the diehards. Shout out Bengal Jim.
Dewan
I
Jones.
seen him at the draft there, but maybe Bengal Jim and Casey and a couple other people will be watching the 6th-round picks on Saturday. But eventually, if they do that, there's no doubt in my mind that they will have the highest televised rating the whole entire week when they don't even play a sport. Like, they don't even play a game.
because I don't know. I mean, I've definitely never watched the Saturday draft. I've never watched a single pick on a Saturday, but they 100% should do it, and I don't know why they don't. If I'm going to be honest with you,
I think they're going to at some point.
I think they will.
Somebody will bring up that idea, and they're going to be like, okay, yeah, good idea.
Did you put your house on J.J. McCarthy over 5.5 picks?
Because that was a lock.
No, I did not.
You
Although
could have. It
although
was only like minus 170. You would have put 10 trillion on that.
No. Well, what I did realize, don't want to get too far into this. We'll get on Mims. Let's do Mims now. We'll do draft reactions when we're supposed to do draft reactions, I guess. We'll try to stick to the schedule, although we're not very good at that around here. Mims obviously played for Georgia. I'm a Georgia fan, yes. I think the biggest The thing that everybody is saying about Mims is 100% true, and I don't know if there's a right answer, and it's impossible to forecast a right answer is where I'm at on Mims. You can't sit here and suggest to me that he's a huge project. Like there's one thing he didn't play just 8 games because he's not good enough like to play in the NFL, clearly, and he's not just a size guy. There was some injury concerns, yes. Like, that's part of it, and then the other part of it is that he did play at Georgia, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a Georgia fan, but like, This guy played behind a senior-laden class that went and won the national championship. And there's a reason why he didn't play, and it's largely because, again, he sat behind Warren McClendon, who was a very, very good player. And then he gets hurt, and then he gets an opportunity to play, and in the 8 games that you get a chance to see him play, most notably probably against Ohio State, he looks like the best tackle, quite honestly, in the draft. My point would be this, like, if he's on the field and he's healthy, he would have been the first. He would have been the first tackle taken, in my opinion. But the reality is that he didn't play. But I guess the positive side of the reason he didn't play isn't because he wasn't good enough, and in my opinion, isn't because of a huge major injury history. Like, you get hurt one time, okay. It's not like he's been hurt 3-4 times is what I'm getting at. So I don't hate the pick. I think there's huge upside. And, it is a risk, but I don't think it's like this guy is not going to be – he could play year one is what I'm getting at.
He probably will, because at some point a tackle will go down. I think we average like five weeks needing a replacement tackle over the past like 3 or so years. Here's what I'll say very quickly, and I know Casey has a lot of thoughts on this. Before the draft happened, I was pro offensive tackle, and everyone said, like, why do you want to go in offensive tackle? We already have those two positions locked up. And I said, I'm okay with planning for the future. It's what the Bengals have done the last 2 years. We'll see if those picks work out. But I don't need a player to impact the Bengals right now. As we constantly, the buzzword is windows. How's Joe Burrow and the Bengals window looking? I'd rather it be a bay window instead of a keyhole. I'd rather continue. And if there's any position that I'm willing to swing and miss on, as we've seen, NFL teams will swing and miss on quarterbacks all the time. If I'm willing to swing and miss on any position where the Bengals at currently, I'm willing to do that at tackle, because I know if you get the right guy, if you get a guy with a huge ceiling and he turns into be a constant Pro Bowler, you set this team up for success for a long time. And on top of that, I'm okay with him not being an instant impact, because out of all the positions in the National Football League to learn, offensive tackle is the second hardest behind, obviously, quarterback. So you need time to grow into that position. So that's why I'm okay with the pick.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the players that were available to the Bengals, and if they were gung-ho set on getting a guy that was going to protect Joe Burrow, Amarius Mims was the correct choice there. So I can't really fault them for the guy that they ended up going with. If it was Troy Fautanu, I've had a whole different conversation here today. I would have been very upset. Amarius Mims, like you said, Trace, might have the highest upside out of all these guys in the draft. He didn't have very many flaws, just not a lot of film to go off of. And I said this on the show yesterday on Chatterbox Bengals. You do the football math. He's completely shutting down a guy that's going to be a top 10 edge rusher next year in JT Tolomalu. I mean, that's a guy that you would want to bring in your building. Not only that, he's the most athletic offensive lineman we've ever drafted. The whole time that Zach Taylor's been in a head coach here, he's brought in guys that were not very athletic, and that can be problematic in terms of molding guys, in terms of developing guys, because they're just not athletic enough to be what you need them to be. That's not going to be Mims. Mims, he can do it all. It's just whether or not he can stay healthy. The injuries that he sustained, I did a little research on this. All of them were mainly soft tissue injuries, which are injuries that you can prevent if you're doing good enough exercises and stretching and things of that nature. Now, he's had a lot of them, but I think when you get to the NFL level, you're going to be focused in on doing everything you can to stay healthy. He's going to be playing beside two guys, Orlando Brown Jr., who stayed healthy mostly throughout his career, and Trent Brown, who has not been as healthy, but both have very similar play styles to what Mims is going to bring to the table to you, and some. So I think he's coming into a really good situation, going to be playing behind guys that are similar in stature, similar in play style, and I think that Mims was the right choice if you're going offensive line. Now, my problem with yesterday's draft was that you could have picked the number one corner, which to me I think provides a little more value. You're getting a lot more snaps out of that guy year one than you are Mims. And on top of that, my guy, Jer'zhan Newton, which ended up falling, happens to me every year apparently. DeJuan Jones, Jer'zhan Newton, what's the difference apparently? He was also on the board. So those are my only two gripes. If you're going to ask me what the grade is, to me it's a B to a B plus because of the upside. I see a lot of people just hating on this pick. I'm not as down on it as I was, maybe alluding to how down I would be after looking into it a little bit more. I don't think the injury stuff is as serious as maybe people make it out to be. Soft tissue things, sometimes they linger, sometimes they don't, and it's just going to be dependent on if he does a good enough job preventing it.
I think when I first saw it, I wasn't excited, But when you talk
It's
about
not a sexy pick, that's for sure.
When you talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, you're going to talk about Joe Burrow, and when you talk about Joe Burrow, you're going to bring up the offensive line. Having depth at that position coming into this season, you could have worse problems. But the issue I had is that there are worse problems, and that the offensive line, though maybe not as good as we had hoped last season, they weren't the issue for the bad play by the Cincinnati Bengals. It was primarily on the defensive side of the football, and that's who I would have wanted to attack in the draft. And that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a defensive player. Obviously, that's not what we got. The good news, this kid's easy to root for. I saw in his reaction, I think, was the best out of anybody who got drafted last night. Genuinely happy. I think he was crying, making exciting noises with his family. He said last night it's his dream to play for to block for Joe Burrow. I like the pick. It's a C+ pick for me. It's a fine pick. It's not a bad pick. There's worse positions you could have gotten. I thought it was fine.
It's a wait and see. It's a wait and see.
That's right.
That's my favorite thing about the draft is that you have all the pundits and all the experts, right, that are going to go out and give the draft class grades. And if we went back and looked at the draft class grades of all time, we're going to quickly find out that, again, I don't know what the hit rate is on the experts, but I know this. It's not 100%. And I also know that, you look back at maybe some of the guys that you were least excited about, they turn into being the reason as to why these franchises are great, right? More times than not, I'm sure the Cowboys fans weren't excited when they drafted, basically that incredible offensive line that allowed them to be competitive. And I know they didn't get over the proverbial hump, and there's reasons for that. But at the end of the day, your biggest asset that is on your entire roster, the guy that's made the most money in the history of the franchise, it's hard for me to sit here and suggest that it's a bad idea to protect him and take a chance on him.
That's true.
And I think that you can say, hey, you had better value at the cornerback position because you had all those guys on the board, and you're saying maybe you could have got the best defensive back in the entire draft. That might be true, but at the end of the day, what is the difference between having the best defensive back and trying to find somebody maybe in the second or third round versus getting the guy that everybody sits here and clamors for every single year, which is, hey, we need somebody to protect him. Now, this is an exciting thing for me. For those that don't know, Brooke Austin's a guy that I followed for a long time. And before we go to him, sometimes you forget you're on the radio, which means when we come back on 1410 Wing AM, we're going to talk to Brooke Austin about Amarius Mims. He's followed him every step of the way at University of Georgia. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back into 1410 Wing AM, your home for the best sports talk. ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. And I obviously teased right before we went to break that for me personally, this is a pretty cool thing because I had followed a guy named Brooks Austin. I'm as many know in this office, and maybe you don't know if you've not watched this show long enough, I love Georgia football. It's probably my #1 fandom. I've become a fanatic. And I start to find things, and I try to inundate myself with as much content as humanly possible, and I ran across a guy named Brooks Austin. Now, back when I found him, thank God, he wasn't as big of a deal. He wasn't running around. He wasn't with all the big wigs, as they say. Next thing you know, he's got Gary Danielson and Pate on his show. Next thing you know, I'm like, wow, this guy's blowing up. It's because he knows football. And the beautiful thing for our audience is, Brooks, as I welcome you in here, is that you're an offensive line guy. And you got a chance to see Amarius Mims play a significant amount, or at least be around the program. You've heard the rumors of pretty much all of these guys since they come up from high school right into their obviously collegiate programs. Mims, around here, I got to be honest, it's a 50-50 split. You got some people that are very, very upset that they took this guy. How's he only played 8 games? And then you have the other side of the aisle that's like, hey, this guy meets all the measurables, incredible athlete, has an incredible high ceiling. I guess I'll just give you the open floor right now to say your overall thoughts on Mims in general, and do your best to try to be unbiased if you can.
Yeah, so I guess let's start with the 8 games, right? Everyone's going to look at the sample size and be like, how does this 5-star, #2 overall tackle in 2021, how does he go to the University of Georgia, play for 3 years, and only really play in like 8 to 10 games and only get 8 starts? Well, the reality of the situation was his freshman year, he was behind Broderick Jones and Warren McClendon, both of which are NFL Sunday tackles right now. His sophomore year, his redshirt freshman year, he was going to be tasked with the very same thing. Warren's coming back. Broderick's coming back. We need you to sit another year. That was something that was like, man, I'm a 3-and-done football player. I'm 6'7", 330 pounds. People have been telling me since I was 15 years old, I'm going to be a first-round draft pick. I got to get out of here. So he hits the portal in the spring of his redshirt freshman year, and he takes a visit to Florida State, gets down there, and's like, is this what the rest of college football looks like? I'm going to go back to Athens. Goes back to Athens, gets developed for another year, and only starts the 8 football games, has a tightrope surgery midway through the season, goes down with an ankle injury against South Carolina. So I can really explain away the lack of starts, right? I can look at it on its surface and say, well, this wasn't a guy that was continuously hurt. He had an ankle injury in college and got rolled up on, and he popped a hamstring during the NFL Combine. But this wasn't a guy that couldn't practice his freshman year because he had a back injury or, tweaked his knee his sophomore year, and that's why he missed time. No, this was a guy like a lot of football players at the University of Georgia had to sit because the guys in front of him were better and were starters at the time, and he just didn't have a chance to beat those guys out. But, man, what he put on tape during his time at the University of Georgia is one of the higher ceiling prospects at the tackle position I think the NFL's seen in quite some time.
All right, so if you look forward to this, and you're obviously a Bengals fan, you say, okay, I can get over the proverbial hump of the 8 games. You've been around a lot of offensive linemen, or you've seen a lot of tape of offensive linemen, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain maybe to the audience of those that are saying, okay, what's he going against in practice every single day? And what does that look like? And then the second part of that would be, what, I guess, in your own eyes, if you were a general manager of an NFL franchise and you had Joe Burrow obviously sitting back there, but you had all these defensive players last night. If we're being honest, Brooks, those defensive guys, because the quarterbacks were going so high in the draft that there's a lot of good defenders that fell down. Do you think the risk was worth the reward at 18?
I don't study the NFL as much as I do college football, obviously. But my history of the NFL draft tells me this. The blue chipper at offensive tackle is far more likely to be a hit than the blue chipper at wide receiver, and vice versa. The third-round draft pick at defensive line is far more likely to be a hit than the third-round draft pick at offensive tackle. How many all-pros we've seen drafted at the tackle position in the third round?
Right.
So I'm saying, like, we don't see a ton of these slept-on prospects. And if you really look at what the board looked like, when Cincy was drafted, after that, after Amarius Mims, the tackle board looked really, really dry. Like, I know as much as there was talk about how this is the deepest and best offensive tackle class in, 10 years, that's true up until, tackle 7. And then after that, it's like, do we want to take the retread from Oregon that ended up at BYU and Kingsley Suamatiau? Or do we want to take the cat from Arizona that was a relatively unknown prospect coming out of high school and developed into this really good guy after 5 or 6 years of college football? I don't know, man. The blue chipper left at the offensive tackle position was Amarius right there at 18. And since he took him, the best defensive players were probably available. The best corner was available. But, we've seen first-round corners hit or miss, rather, at a little bit higher of a rate than we have first-round tackles, particularly, like I said, with that drop-off after that. So if I were a Cincinnati Bengals fan, man, I would go back to 2022, and I would watch Amarius Mims versus Ohio State in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, and I would shut up. I would just watch that, and I'd be like, this is what I got. I wouldn't pay attention to anything else. I would watch that tape and watch him take JT Tuamaloau out in his first career start and handle him, and watch him take the other, defensive end that was a first-round or a third-round draft pick and handle him, right? Jack Sawyer, come in. Okay, we're going to handle you. All right, I would watch that tape, and I would just be quiet about all the other questions, even though I know there are a bunch of other questions about, full sample size of this athlete. He's only got 8 games. I know, but he looked damn good in 8 games.
All right, Brooks, the last question I'll have in regards to Mims is this. The term project gets used a lot, right? Oh, this guy's going to be a project. Fortunately for the Bengals, they do have 2 tackles right now, presumably that will start the year off on each end in the Browns. Trent Brown's obviously been a guy that's been hurt a significant amount of the time, though, so you think that Mims might find himself in an opportunity at some point this season. But how much of a project do you see Mims as, just technically speaking? I'm not talking about, take the health away, take the 8 games he's only played away, but just technically speaking, do you think it's as much of a project, or do you think it's as much as, hey, this guy just hasn't had a chance to play a lot, and that's why you think he's a project?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to grade technique on a 6'8" guy, to be honest with you. Like, yeah, they play high because they're 6'8", he doesn't have to do things technically as clean as everybody else because God blessed this one. I mean, God literally reached down and said, all right, that guy's going to be an NFL football player. He's going to be an offensive tackle, like, period, point blank, first-round draft pick. You see the waist on this guy? Like, his arms are 85 inches, in wingspan. He's got 35.5-inch arms, and I think he probably wears, like, a 36 in the waist in pants. Like, he is God's physical gift to offensive tackle play. So when you watch him, don't get inundated with technique. All you need to get inundated with is whether or not he got the job done. And this is a football player that's going to get the job done, even on the NFL ranks. Like, technically not that clean. Hasn't really played left tackle. Probably going to have to start out at right tackle. Might kick over there eventually. But, man, in terms of throw the guy out there, let him see if he can swim. Like I said, he was born with floaties on his arms with regards to being able to swim in the shark-infested waters that are the NFL, man. I think he's going to be fine. Just throw him out there and let him survive.
All right, moving forward here, draft day 2 starts obviously today, and then you move into the weekend. You watch a lot of college football. I'm well aware of that. Just some guys maybe off the top of your head that you're interested in seeing on where they go. You kind of have in your notion you think they're a great football player, and maybe they don't have the measurables, or maybe they do have the measurables, and you're just wondering why they're falling this far.
Yeah, I look at a player like now I know it's a really, really weak inside linebacker, off-ball linebacker class, but like I watched how Junior Colson finished his season at Michigan and thought he had pretty solid claim on that first inside linebacker potentially off the board. He's huge. He's like 6'3", 250 pounds, and moves really, really well at that size. I think there's still some good receivers left out there. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell, coming from Georgia. There was some late reporting on the NFL draft about, maybe this is some character concerns. There's some type 1 diabetes stuff. Are you going to be able to get him to practice every single day? All that kind of nonsense that we hear prior to the draft. I will say this. A.D. Mitchell was at Georgia for 2 years. We knew about the type 1 diabetes. Anyone who was, quote unquote insider was aware that type 1, that this individual had this stuff, but it was not an issue. More of the issues were like, hey, A.D., I know the hammy's a little tight today, buddy, but we need you to practice. Like that was kind of more of the hindrance with AD during his time at the University of Georgia, but they don't create specimens like that very often. 6'4", 205 pounds. I think he ran 4.38 at the NFL Combine and jumped over 40 inches and 5.10.5, something close to at near or below 4.00 seconds flat. Like that's an avatar. That is as freaky as they get at the wide receiver position. My lone question about AD is there is very little college production, like very little for a first round or second round draft pick at the receiver position. I think he had 3 games with more than 5 receptions and 3 games in his college career with more than 100 yards. And he basically started for 3 college football seasons. Like, that's a little bit of a yellow flag for me. Like, hey, what's up? Why are we not getting the amount of production that other guys are? Are you not separating? And then just a really high-quality football player will stick with Georgia. Ladd McConkey's going to be a 10-year pro. Like, I don't know if he'll ever be the number 1 slot receiver in the league. I don't know if he'll ever lead the league in receptions, but Ladd McConkey's going to start for your NFL football team for 10 years, and you're going to be like, damn, that was a solid selection. We were not going to miss on that one. The hit rate on Ladd is just so solid for me. I just think he's going to be a guaranteed good pro.
All right, last guy, and I'll let you go. I appreciate you coming on here, is SVP, Cedric van Pran.
Yeah.
There's this for those that don't know, obviously played center at the University of Georgia for quite some time. Reminds me of David Andrews a little bit, right? It's like how's this guy this good of a football player, this smart of a football player, and then you watch the draft, he goes undrafted, and the next thing you know, the Patriots pick him up, plays for how many years? I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years, and wins Super Bowls, and you're like, I don't understand why this. How does that happen? How does that happen? SVP, where does he? Do we have an idea where he's going to go, or what's the latest on that?
I think 3rd to 5th. That's kind of the value that I've gotten on it. Here's the deal, man. Criminally short arm length. Like, NFL is going to red tag this worse than a medical red tag. Like, he is a center at the University of Georgia that started 45 games in a row. 45 games in a row. Since the moment he got his first start against Cincinnati in 2020, he did not come off the field at the University of Georgia. So it's a really good football player, a really sustainable football player, a guaranteed, like, really good addition to your room. However, he's got less than 30 or 32-inch arms at 6'4". Like and you can kind of see it on tape. Guys will turn edges on him and get corners on him that, probably shouldn't happen. Granted, he doesn't lose a lot of reps, but when he does, that's why. You can see him have the kind of, not necessarily inability, but he's losing the 2 or 3 inches in lockout, and that's kind of a major critical thing. Now, you guys got a Georgia guy on the roster, I'm pretty sure, up there in Cincy, and Trey Hill. He's not as physically gifted as Trey Hill. He's a better football player than Trey Hill. I'll tell you that right now. Trey Hill would have flashes where he puts Javon Kinlaw on his damn head 9 yards down the field, and then the next play he's turning around looking at the backfield with his hands on his head going, well, shoot. Cedric van Pran doesn't have that. Cedric van Pran is as even kill of an evaluation as you could possibly have. I'm like you. I'm a big fan of Ced. I think Ced's going to be a lifelong pro. He's going to make your room better. But when we're talking about NFL draft and height, weight, speed, and measurables and red flagging things that you can't take, sub 32-inch arm length on a 6'4" center is going to be one of those beep, 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 beep. Like, watch out.
All right, and then what's your take on J.J. McCarthy? I don't mean to put you on the spot like that, but I'm about to ask the rest of the room here. I just want to get it on record, just so we all know. What's your take on J.J. McCarthy before I let you go?
All right, so look, I'm really, really perplexed, man. I am, because like I'm a traits guy. Like when I evaluate football players, I'm more apropos to take the traits over the stats or the tape. Well, the tape's important, but the traits on the tape are the most important. Like what your box score looks like doesn't really concern me. However, J.J. McCarthy, in 2 years as the number one, his 2 years as a starter, his average stat line was 23 attempts on 69% completion percentage for 191 yards per game. That ain't it, bro. That is not what we're going into at the next level. So I have to project 23 attempts, 191 yards per game onto an NFL level, which, by the way, ran the numbers last night. The average NFL team throws it 35 times per game. This dude's going to have to throw it 12 times more per game. Did you know the average NFL starter throws 578 attempts per season? J.J. McCarthy has 482 attempts for his career. So we're really trying to extrapolate what we saw. And that makes me really, really nervous. Like when we have 70% of a scouting eval off this kid. Well, project the other 30%. And, oh, by the way, handle a transition period where he's going from Michigan to the daggum NFL. Like, that's really hard for me to do. It's really, really hard for me to do. So I said it on our air in our channel. He looks like Jake Fromm's box score with Josh Allen's flashy, like, highlights. The highlights on this dude are first-round caliber. Take him. But we can't extrapolate those highlights over everything. Now, my thing about it, and this is the last point I got, a lot of people say Michigan was hiding this guy. How dare we draft him in the first round? How dare we trade up for a guy that his own coaching staff was hiding him? I would say contraire. I think they were hiding the offensive line's inability to go backwards. They could not protect that dude for 2 years. As much as Jim Harbaugh hyped that offensive line up, as many Joe Moore awards as they friggin' stole from college football, they can't pass protect. They couldn't at all. Anytime they tried to drop this guy into a 5-step drop, he was getting swarmed with defensive linemen. So, yeah, we could talk about that offensive line. We could talk about, well, he don't have attempts because they couldn't protect the guy. So I'm okay. I just don't know how we project it, right? I said I'm perplexed and I have no idea what to do with it. He could be a complete bust, and I'd say, that makes sense. He could be a complete boom, and I'd be like, well, the traits were there the whole time.
All right. That's Brooks Austin. Brooks, where can we find you? I know I can find you. Obviously, you're on YouTube. You're with SI. Any other places you'd like the folks to know about?
Yeah, man, I really want to promote my YouTube channel, the Film Guy Network. If you're a college football fan at all, you don't have to be an SEC guy. You don't have to be specifically located to one team. We do all national college football conversations Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And I personally believe we do it better than anybody else. So come check us out and have a good time. Hey, man, I appreciate you for having me on for real. And I appreciate the love all the way up in there in Ohio.
That's right. All right. We appreciate you, Brooks. Thank you. All right. When we come back, we will talk about what he had to say. Didn't sound like he had raving reviews about JJ, but I don't know if he said that he was out on JJ either. That was a very good political answer by Brooks. We'll find out what the rest of the gang says because I want to hear it because he's going to the best situation that I've heard about in the history of the draft. That and more after this on 1410 Wing AM. All right, welcome back into Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Turned into a little bit of a Georgia conversation there for a minute. I got to be honest. I was asking for bigger picture draft questions, and that's okay. Brooks knows a lot about Georgia football, so he probably leans on that a little bit. But Casey wanted to know what he thought about Ladd McConkey, and he gave you your answer. Said he was going to be a 10-year vet.
Yeah, that's what I want. I mean, we'll get into what we want in day 2 later when we get through some of our reactions of what happened day 1. But Ladd McConkey, he's high up on my board as well. There's a lot of guys that fall day 1 that I'm just really high on today. So excited for day 2 coming up.
I thought he dropped an immense amount of knowledge. In all sincerity, I thought that was great. He gave a lot of insight. I did think it was a little hypocritical what he said about Mims and what he said about JJ, because those seemed like competing answers. He said about Mims, he's like, he's got the traits, he's got the size. You don't need to see all the tape. You don't need to see all the everything because you know you got the traits and the tape is good when he's there. And then it was JJ was like, yeah, he's got the traits, he's got the size, but where's the tape? And that's like, I thought those were competing answers. I thought those were a little hypocritical, but everything I thought he was fantastic.
So you're a JJ guy, to be clear.
No. No.
Wait a minute.
Hang on.
Now.
When have I ever been a JJ?
I'm just making sure.
There is a little other part to it too. He wasn't physically on the field where JJ was on the field, right? Like he had opportunities and didn't get them, whereas Mims didn't really get a whole lot of opportunities. That's the difference, I think.
All right, fair enough. Here's what I'll say. Like, I don't want it to be made out to be that I'm some J.J. McCarthy stan, because I'm not. In fact, I thought that if J.J. McCarthy didn't go to the Minnesota Vikings, I had not a whole lot of expectations for J.J. McCarthy as an NFL quarterback at all. I thought that, like, when you're drafted as a quarterback, there's 4 things that you want. There's 4 things that you want. One is good weapons to throw to. One is a good offensive line. One's an offensive, well-rounded head or coach. And then one is that we've seen be successful in years past is an opportunity to sit behind, to learn the game before you're just thrown in the fire. And J.J. McCarthy is going to get all 4 of those opportunities in Minnesota. He's not going to be asked to start right away. He has top 3 weapons in the league. He has a top half offensive line, and I think he's got one of the best offensive head coaches, probably a top 5 offensive head coach, and Kevin O'Connell. So if there was ever a situation in which J.J. McCarthy can succeed, it would be in Minnesota. Now I want to throw this caveat. I'm not gonna be here in the game and say that I think J.J. McCarthy is gonna be a top 10 guy, a top 5 guy. I do think J.J. McCarthy will be a competent NFL quarterback. Like, I don't think it's gonna be throw him into the fire and it's Zach Wilson or Josh Rosen out there. I think you're gonna see a guy that is gonna have some ebbs and flows, some ups and downs with a young guy. He's only 21 years old, but he's going to be a competent quarterback just based off of the situation that he has.
Well, J.J. McCarthy, and this is where you're like, it's no fault of his own. He went to Michigan. They had a good football team. That's how it works. However, he's never been put in a position at Michigan where he was forced to be the guy that ultimately would make them win or lose. Like, you can say whatever you want about Penix, but, like, Penix, everywhere he went, they were competitive because of him. He was the spark. Yeah. He went to Indiana football, they become relevant. He leaves Indiana football, they become a misery. He goes to Washington, they find a way to magically just make the national championship. Now, you could say that's luck. You could say it's whatever. I would like to think that Penix is a pretty damn good quarterback. Now, would I have drafted him when I just signed Kirk Cousins? No, I'm not on that bandwagon. But I also will say JJ's never been given the opportunity, you could argue, to do that, but he's never done it. And I think that's the area now to where it's like, okay, what do you expect out of JJ? Is he going to get an opportunity to sit and relax and learn? Maybe he will. Maybe he'll ultimately be a serviceable quarterback. I just can't fathom the idea of stretching yourself every single year. It seems like the NFL teams do this. They stretch themselves and they convince themselves that they're going to get a franchise quarterback when, for all intents and purposes, there's nothing that some of these quarterbacks have ever done in their careers that makes you think that they will end up being that guy. And again, I guess I'm not a JJ guy, But having said that, I'm not rooting against him actively. Well, I don't want the Vikings to win football games, but
I think
I'm not,
you are.
Well, you could say that I am.
I think you are.
Oh, I'm not.
Because you don't like being told how good of the situation the Vikings is, and you didn't like the rumors about JJ getting shot.
The Bears have a good situation.
Bears have a great situation. I think the Vikings is better, but the Bears have a really good situation as well. Here's the thing I'll say about quarterbacks in the NFL draft. I think it is lazy when people talk about the NFL draft. Everyone just says every single guy's a bust. Every year. Like, this guy's not any good, this guy's not any good, this guy's not any good, because that's a safe thing to do. That's a safe thing to do. You don't hear anybody stepping up outside of the few draft analysts that are going, hey, this Caleb Williams guy's pretty remarkable. Outside of them, no one's stepping up and going, Jaden Daniels is going to be a great quarterback for years to come. There's no one coming up and saying Drake May is going to be, despite having a terrible situation in New England, is going to turn that franchise around. No one's stepping up and saying Bo Nix can work with Sean. No one's saying that. So I just think it's lazy to say every single guy is going to be a bust. That's where I rub the wrong way. So then I just go against the other way, be like, we'll see. I mean, he's got a decent situation. We'll see what happens. It's a wait and see thing. I don't mind teams going up and swinging and missing on quarterback, because we know in the NFL to win you got to have a great quarterback. We know that. Yep. And that's what the teams know. So yeah, you could put yourself in a situation like the New York Giants where they go up, they trade up to get Daniel Jones, and then they give him a big contract, and now that's looking like hell. But it's all because they know if you get the right guy, all the other things fall into place.
Yeah, what you can do what the Panthers did last year, obviously, and
swing and miss,
they
right.
got them. Well, I'm saying they gave themselves a chance to get the guy they thought was the best, but arguably the owner, I guess. They're that whole situation, and which one's a bigger dumpster fire? I'm sure we'll have a discussion about that. Is it the Panthers or is it the Falcons? Because the Panthers traded up one pick to if we're being honest, to like ravage their entire draft for the next 2 years. Well, this year certainly, and then next year, I don't know. The Panthers, let's just be clear. The Panthers traded up to get Bryce Young. Gave away the opportunity to have the first pick this year against a quote-unquote generational quarterback, right, in Caleb Williams. Yeah. And then not only that, they have next year's second-round pick and this year's first round. So
it's a big haul.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's just like every single year you have these teams that stretch themselves thin to where I don't like you mentioned it. I guess I'm crazy for saying it, but like would it be more intelligent not just to trade back at that point when you realize, hey, we didn't get the guy we wanted, or do they just convince themselves that, hey, maybe they love JJ McCarthy. Maybe they did, to be fair.
I don't know.
I have a hard time looking at the board and thinking, like, if you'd asked at the end of college football season, like, hey, what's your top 5 quarterbacks? I have a hard time believing that JJ was one of those guys, but maybe it was.
I want to make it very clear that I think JJ is the 6th best quarterback out of the guys taken yesterday. But I think he went to the best position. I think he went to the best situation. So
the thing that you have to consider here is who are the options who are available to the Vikings. It was JJ and Bo Nix. And you don't like Bo Nix either. I know that. He got ran out of the SEC. And I'm with you on that. I would be a little nervous to draft him as well, as high as they did. I thought you could probably trade back and get more value.
Are we crazy for saying that you can just punt? Like, you just realize you're in a bad spot, guys. Like, I'm not saying
what I wanted the Patriots to do.
Well, I'm saying, like, you were in a bad spot. We can waste our first round pick on a 5th best quarterback that we think maybe he's okay, or we can just say, you know what, we're gonna get the best damn player that we know is gonna be an NFL pro, or we assume to be an NFL pro. And we're not gonna stretch ourselves. And we're not going to go away just because we know the quarterback position is incredibly important, and it is. We're going to go one more season, and then maybe at that point we find a way to get our guy.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I think if the Vikings were truly all in on like a rebuild this year, and they weren't trying to win this year, which I think they're trying to win this year, is one of the things, is maybe JJ does start, which would be incredibly crazy. But
how could you be the Vikings? Not to cut you off, but how could you be the Vikings and think that you're going to win this year? How could you possibly think that? You look at the rest of your own division, and you see the Packers and what they have coming up. You see what the Bears just did in front of you. And then on top of that, you have the Detroit Lions, who were a play or two away from being in the Super Bowl. You're the fourth best team in the division. Like, you
Well,
think
the-
J.J.
Well, it's a good
McCarthy's
dif-
going to come in and resurrect your team to
The
be able
Vikings
to?
division. There's no doubt about it. There's not a whole lot of defense going on there. They did win 7 games with pretty much no quarterback play.
Yeah, I mean, like
last year.
the year before that, they were 13-4 and with Kirk Cousins. I mean, if they get the right quarterback there, they're gonna be competitive in that division.
Right, it's because they've got great they've got a
Yeah,
great
they
offense.
got a great offense.
They've got a great offense.
In my opinion, I'm with you on the idea. Like, if they weren't all in on a quarterback, they should have just punted and got draft picks for the next year. You just stock that up, and then you go try to make that same trade that you were trying to do earlier this year, trying to trade up into the top 5 to go get your guy. But that's not what they did. They like their guy. They see something in JJ, and Brooks kind of laid it out there, and I've said it time and time again. He's got the flash plays. JJ's got those wow plays. It's just consistency, and that was something that Josh Allen really struggled with, was consistency. He had a lot of great flash plays. Now, I think there's a lot more film on Josh Allen than there was JJ, but they're in 2 different divisions too. I mean, one was in the Mountain West, and the other one in the Big Ten. I think that's a huge difference. So it depends on how you look at it. I'll be very interested to see what the Vikings do the rest of the way. They also drafted Dallas Turner, which really helped
That's a
solve
good
a
pick.
huge hole on their
That's a
roster.
good pick,
They had a edge rusher problem. They let go that one guy that went to Texas, Daniil Hunter. Dallas Turner kind of just slots right in that role now, and they're right back where they were last year, for the most part.
Can I slightly, ever so slightly, defend the Atlanta Falcons?
Go ahead. Let's try it. You
Can
can
I
start,
try?
you
You
start
can
us
try.
off.
Can I try? So everyone's gonna bury what the Atlanta Falcons did, and I get it, right? They're drafting a guy that's gonna turn 24 next month. He'll be 28 when Kirk Cousins' contract is up.
With 4 major injuries, by the way, to his shoulders,
Listen, I get it.
to his throwing arm.
I
Let
get
him
it.
finish his
I
point.
get
Yeah,
it.
I'm
I'm
on this
just
point.
I'm looking at the history. I'm looking at the 2 most recent quarterbacks that have been drafted by a team that had no reason to draft a quarterback in the first round. Jordan Love. They had Aaron Rodgers. They were coming off the 1 seed in the NFC. And the one before that was the Kansas City Chiefs. They had Alex Smith, and they draft Patrick Mahomes. So the last 2 guys that have had this exact same thing happen where we were all laughing at them. We laughed at the Packers in 2020.
You're forgetting
I can't
one.
believe the Packers. 2017, I can't believe the Chiefs. I forget one. Who am I forgetting?
Trey Lance. That's a
Okay,
bad one.
2 out of
That's
3.
a bad one.
Listen, if you're batting 667, you're not going in the Hall of Fame. They're building statues of you everywhere. They're naming the league. Okay, that was a bad one, but still, 2 out of 3. Like, I'm just saying, like, it's.
So they're due for a bad
I'm
one.
defending it the best way. I don't think it's a good pick, but I'm gonna defend it a little bit.
Listen, you guys know I'm very high on the Falcons. I think they're going to be this year's Lions, and I still truly do believe that. I think that Kirk Cousins is going to make that offense a lot better, and the offense is going to help out that defense tremendously. That being said, they had an opportunity to just like push themselves over the top and solidify the top spot, or like to compete for a top spot in the NFC by getting like Romo Dunes or just the top defender. They had the top defender available to them. They could have picked a corner. They need a corner desperately, and they didn't do that. They went and got a guy who's going to be 24. You said it. He might be 28 by the time Kirk Cousins is out of there.
When Kirk Cousins,
Who's that kid that the Browns drafted that was 28 years old coming out of Oklahoma State? I forget his
Brandon
name.
Whedon.
Brandon Whedon.
Whedon. I mean,
Now, he's a little better than Brandon Whedon, but that's kind of same similarities.
And it's not even just that. He had like season-ending injuries to his throwing arms. Like, what are we doing? He's damaged goods, too old. I mean, that really just made me a non-believer in the Falcons. I think
Positive
they've done a lot of
spin,
really
that's what
good
we're doing.
things. I think they've done a lot of good things, but that pick was just
It was
unbelievable.
terrible. It was like,
That makes sense.
I mean, when I couldn't believe it when I saw it because I was watching the pick with my buddy before we were going to the gym, and the Falcons pick comes on, and just like the kid in the video that we saw earlier, my jaw drops, and it still is insane that they signed this man on and didn't. I didn't know that they didn't tell Kirk Cousins about it. I
Yeah,
had
that's
no
wild
clue.
too.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't tell Kirk Cousins that,
I mean, what does that say to Kirk Cousins? You know.
I don't know. Listen. They didn't do it. They're not going to tell the quarterback. They didn't do it for Aaron Rodgers. It all panned itself out. But the difference is that the difference is the age, right? The difference is the age. Yeah. So you usually are going to take a top 10 selection in the NFL draft if you're going to select a quarterback. The idea in the hopes and the dreams would be to have a franchise quarterback. Mm-hmm. Well, if you're the Falcons, the justification they've used, I don't know if you guys seen what the justification that they used was, but the justification that they said was that they don't believe that they're going to have another top 10 pick in the foreseeable future. So they wanted to make sure that they had a backup when Kirk Cousins obviously retires. Now, one, I guess they're suggesting that Kirk Cousins is going to retire right at the end of his contract. And even if he did, you pull this up, Casey, I could be wrong. Kirk Cousins just signed, it was a 4-year deal, yeah?
Yeah, I'm
but
looking at
they could cut him next year, and it's only like $10 million guaranteed after this year.
That's not what I'm reading here. I'm seeing here that it's going to cost them $40 million if they cut him next year. Before 2025.
All right, well, you keep
I'm
reading into that.
I'm gonna dig it out.
We'll look into that. But when we come back, we're going to get Elliot's thoughts on the Falcons, because the only thing that could have made last night better was if Elliot Rearing was somehow a Falcons fan. That would have been an all-time moment in the history of sports talk, to be able to see Elliot Rearing come in here and have to justify why the Falcons took a guy that, as Casey just said, blew out his shoulder twice in his throwing arm. And he's 28 years old when he finally takes a snap in the NFL, possibly. All right, that and more on 1410 Wing AM when we come back. All right, off the radio for a minute. Did we get an update on the
contract?
Yeah.
So this is what is said
62
here.
this year,
Cousins signed the biggest deal free agency this year, $180 million contract, $100 million of it guaranteed. The contract includes a no trade clause, $62.5 million in 2024 alone.
This year.
If the Falcons cut him in 2025, he'll cost at least $40 million against the salary cap and dead cap money. The hit goes down to 12.5 if he's cut ahead of 2026 or 2027. So they have to keep him for 2 years. Is what I'm reading here, basically.
Okay. I mean, even $100 million guaranteed.
62 of it is this year, though.
There's no way they keep him 4 years with this draft pick. They got to cut him in 2 years.
I don't know.
I mean, we'll see.
All right, Casey.
Do some
Bengals. What's that?
Do some ad reads.
I'm thinking the Bengals report. What are you thinking? You think
the Bengals report? Brought to you by Encore Technologies.
Whoa.
Yeah, Encore Technologies. They provide IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency. And
Jeremiah?
What's up?
Productivity.
Productivity. I've never
well, now you know.
Never heard the ad read before. But
I knew. I was going to put you on the spot no matter what there. I put you in a bad hole.
The path to innovation begins here. Visit encore.tech. Let me tell you about this lovely bottle of water right here. Hear that? It's Pawnee water.
Oh, it's delicious.
Made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. Uses natural
It's
limestone
nutritious.
filtration. Unlike the artificial processing that other brands use, the result is a healthy
It's
alkaline
fergalicious.
water. And some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PHHNI. PHHNIwater.com.
What's the pH level, Casey?
It's a solid 8.
Thank you. All right. All right. Do we
That
have
was
anything?
the first time in months that you've broken on that. You've gotten it every single time.
Do we have anything we want to get to before we go to the radio?
Any silly things?
Any silly things? Any fun things? Someone
WWE draft night. It's big.
Jeremiah's going
Jeremiah's
to the
the
WWE draft.
WWE
Big. I'll be
guy.
there. I'll be there. It's huge.
What the hell is a WWE draft?
So they
Explain
have
that.
they have two different shows, and each show has their own roster.
Okay.
And like once a year, they draft people from the roster onto the other show.
So basically, it's just like all of the biggest stars from each show will be drafted.
They mix it up.
They'll
They
just
mix it up.
switch. And like all the big stars that you see all over the internet right now, that are getting a lot of attention will be there tonight. So
you're a wrestling guy.
Oh, I'm a wrestling fanatic. I love wrestling. I haven't been into it until recently, though. You know, I stopped watching it because it got pretty weird and corny. But nowadays, it's starting to pick back up. It's great.
Who's the U.S. champion?
great.
Who's the United States champion?
Logan Paul actually is
Hell
the
yeah.
United States champion. Yeah.
Wow, that means I'm out. For that reason, I'm out.
The script writers like that one, huh? Logan Paul to be champ.
He's the
I don't
undercard
understand it.
champ. That's the middle champ.
Yeah, that's
There's the world heavyweight. There's the undisputed.
Who
and
did they
there-
script up won the world heavyweight?
The world
They
heavy
got,
right now is Damian Priest.
Yep, Damian Priest, yes.
Cody Rhodes is the undisputed champ.
What does that mean?
He it means so basically the undisputed championship came to be when Roman Reigns beat Brock Lesnar for
There you
both
go.
titles.
There you go.
So I
Yeah,
can't
that's
dispute it.
Correct.
All right.
Undisputed.
Just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page on that one. I think that's it.
All right, back to the radio.
I don't understand wrestling. I can never get into it.
I understand it. I understand that it's fake, and that's just all.
It's not fake.
It's predetermined.
Predetermined.
Sorry,
Yeah.
it's predetermined. That's my bad.
People die in that ring. Don't call
Yeah.
it fake.
They do die in it. I think somebody actually did die in it.
Yeah, I didn't.
what?
I wanna
People
see-
people
yeah,
have
people
died
died.
wrestling. Yeah.
I want to see
God,
Elliot
imagine
do-
reading that script, and you got to read. Oh, it's brutal. Oh, that's just brutal.
I want to see Elliot do a swanton bomb off the top rope and then tell me it's fake.
It sounds problematic. Whatever you just said.
It's just
So
like a front flip off the top rope.
yeah, I don't got a front flip in me, Jay.
All right, back to the radio.
I got a lot of them. I got a lot in me. I don't got a front flip.
We'll work on it.
Yeah, Casey and I will do front flip practice after work today.
All right, back to radio. Here we go. All right, welcome back into hour number 2 of Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers on a lovely Friday. Beautiful weather. It's about this time of the day when some folks start looking out the window and ask themselves, what are they going to do for the rest of the weekend? With weather like this, the amount of things you can do are endless. Some are going to wrestling shows. Some are going to take a walk in the park. And some are going to debate for the end of time what the Falcons are going to do with that 7th pick. And I can't defend it. I know Reed just
tried my best.
I know Reed just did his best, but this is the thing that I always revert back to sometimes when you have fun debates with people, and they always inevitably bring up like, well, I bet they're smarter than you because they actually get paid for a living to do this.
Sure.
Because they're just smarter than you, and you ask like, well, that's fine. You're probably right. They probably thought about this a lot more. But there are times in your life, though, where you get so deep into the weeds of things that you lose all, like, periphery, and you kind of don't see the glaringly obvious thing that exists. That happens in life in all different areas, right? I don't know if you've ever done some DIY projects or you get knee deep in something and you're like, I can't figure out, what's wrong? What's this? And then all of a sudden, again, using a quick example would be like, well, you just forgot that 40 minutes ago you went and flipped the breaker, and until you flip the breaker back, your light's never going to work, even if you wired it correctly. Now, the Falcons last night feel a little bit like that. It's like you can overthink this. And you can sit here and suggest to me that, oh yeah, Penix is in it. Maybe they have a plan with Kirk Cousins. Maybe it's a one and done situation. Maybe they already all along knew it was a one and done. But there's no way they would have signed that contract if they thought that. So where's the disconnect? You've seen the tape, you've seen the clips. Obviously, Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, sitting there having what seems like a puzzle discussion with the general manager of the team, trying to figure out what's the plan here, buddy. Which makes me think, kudos to the owner. Kudos to Arthur Blank if he genuinely had no idea that they were going to make that pick. Because, delegation is a good thing. Delegation sometimes gives trust in other people. You say, you know what? I'm going to let them handle this on their own, stay out of their way. But then there are times when that happens that Arthur Blank now will be in the room forever. He's going to be like, I need to know. So shout out to Jerry Jones for a guy that makes all the picks. Jerry Jones will never find himself in that position.
No, not quite. The move is one of the worst moves I've ever seen in an NFL draft. It's not because of Michael Penix. It has nothing to do with Michael Penix. If you knew, which most of these teams know who you're going to draft months in advance, they had to have thought that they were going to draft a quarterback here if you're taking Michael Penix with the 8th overall pick. And if you knew that, why are you signing Kirk Cousins? Why wouldn't you use that money and allocate it elsewhere? It makes zero sense. Zero sense. If you're Michael Penix, you're probably pissed because you have to sit 4 years. And I see the injury thing. Kirk Cousins could get injured at any point. Sure. But you don't draft a quarterback with the 8th overall pick because your franchise quarterback who you just signed to a 4-year deal might get hurt. That's not a good reason. That's not a good reason at all. So yeah, I think it's a laughably bad pick, and I think that GM is probably on the hot seat if this I can't say the word show flames out, which it probably will, because the Atlanta Falcons, respectfully, you asked who's the worst franchise, who's in the worst shape right now, the Atlanta Falcons or the Carolina Panthers. The answer is the Carolina Panthers, but the Falcons aren't far behind.
The Falcons will still win a lot of games this year. Like let's not
Correct, with Kirk Cousins.
Right.
Correct.
Well, you just said which team's in a worse situation. The Panthers are years away from competing. The Falcons might win 10 games this year, might easily win that division. Like that is very true. And once again, it's not a good pick. Doesn't make a whole lot of
Horrible
sense.
pick.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but if you do want to make some sense of it, like I said, it's typically good to take a guy and have him sit behind someone who's played the game before. And Kirk Cousins is 35 years old, coming off an Achilles injury. That's a hard injury to come back from. But then that begs the question, why give him $180 million? That's true, too. So it just goes all the way around.
But you mentioned it. By the time his contract's up, he's 7 years away from 35 years old, Michael Penix Jr. So it's like you like the age thing. He's one of the oldest. Is he the oldest quarterback in the draft, or is that Bo Nix?
I have no clue.
They're the same. They're pretty much the same.
It's just wild to me. If they would have drafted J.J. McCarthy, and Reed said it earlier, a younger guy, and he's like, yeah, you learn from him by the time Cousins' contract is up, you're 24, you're ready to go. That kind of almost makes sense to me. But Michael Penix Jr. with that specific pick, makes zero sense.
This to me also doesn't make a whole lot of sense too, because it's the same issue with the Jordan Love thing. Like, you're gonna only have a year to evaluate the guy, and then you're going to give him a contract? It shouldn't have been done this early, is my problem with it. You see what you have with Kirk Cousins year one. You're paying him $60 million to play for you, and then $40 million the next year. Like, just roll with what you got. You could have waited a little longer. If you really were gung-ho on a quarterback, you trade back and then take whoever. You take Bo Nix later, or not Bo Nix. You take Michael Penix later.
It would have made sense if they got JJ, because JJ's like, 21 years
100% it would have made.
Then you can go like, oh, okay, well, we'll let him sit behind Kirk Cousins, let him learn the game, and then hopefully in 3 years he's ready to rock. Because that's how old Jordan Love was when he got drafted. He was 21 years old. So, I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I try to defend it as best I can, but
you can't. There's just no defense of it.
Can't defend it.
You can't defend signing a veteran quarterback for 4 years and whatever have you, the 1 year opt out for $40 million in losses, and then go ahead and draft a quarterback, because again they've had to have this plan for months.
Well, here's the point that Sean. They don't have that plan for months. Like they it's in the back of their mind.
They have to have an idea.
You're right. They do have to have an idea. But here's the two courses of action with the Atlanta Falcons going forward. It's either Kirk Cousins is worth the money that you paid him, right? He's winning a lot of games, and you continue to pay him his contract, and you pay him the full $180 million. Or, as Sean Connor just put in there, if it's not working out with Kirk Cousins, then you cut ties. You win 100 in the hole or whatever it is.
Hole.
It is a tough hole, but then you let Michael Penix play. So it's just a backup plan. Still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but we're trying to find some sense out of it.
Was that the worst pick in the draft for you? I think it was, right?
I don't know. Sure. If I was the Patriots, I wouldn't have drafted Drake May. But
Really?
Not because I don't think Drake May is a good quarterback. It's because I just think the Patriots aren't giving him a prayer to succeed.
Well, there were swirlings of the Patriots making
Getting
a
Brandon
deal
Ayuk,
with.
yeah.
There still is.
And there still is. So Brandon Ayuk, and I think Casey sent me this morning, it's switching to Debo. So that'll be interesting if the Patriots are able to pull that off. It'd be a better situation, I guess, a little bit, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Poor Bill Belichick and his dog. That draft room didn't leave the Patriots with a whole lot in the cupboard.
The best was Bill Belichick. The screenshot everybody sends in. It's not even Bill Belichick's not even in the room. It's the dog is on the seat on the computer.
I just want to let everybody know that Michael Penix and Trevor Lawrence are in the same recruiting class.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's tough.
I don't know. How old's like Justin Fields? Like Justin Fields,
Fields, same recruiting.
I was
class.
gonna say Justin Fields is like the same age.
Yeah.
Justin Fields 25. But so he'll be a year older.
Yeah,
He's about
it's
a
the
year
same recruiting class though, going into college at the same time. This Trevor Lawrence. I don't know, man. You can try to justify it all you want, but who cares at this point? Good luck to the Falcons.
Yeah,
Godspeed.
Godspeed.
You know, just got to be thankful that that's not your franchise.
I think
Simple
it
as
every
that.
day.
Some guys that Casey that you're excited about here as we move forward into day 2 of the draft.
Well, Trace, there's quite a few of them. Just like every year, there's a ton of guys that just somehow manage to find their way into the second round when they
Well, that's
probably
what happens
shouldn't
when they
be.
draft like 9 quarterbacks, Casey.
That's true. That's true. Right off the top of the list, there's like 5 guys that I think are first-round talents. Cooper DeJean is one of those guys. I'm not going to talk about Johnny Newton. I've talked about him 100,000 times. I'll get to him later. But Cooper DeJean, he might be the best pure secondary player in this draft class.
Mal, to say something about him.
What?
I feel like if you draft Cooper DeJean and he misses and he's not very good,
I know what you're going to say.
I feel like you could have seen it coming. I feel like that's
Yeah.
one. I feel like that's one
don't-
that's not worth the risk of a first-round pick.
I think. Well, here's the thing: is Cooper DeJean is good enough to play. I think if he doesn't succeed as a corner, he will be a good safety. He is
Sure.
athletic.
But
he's
I'm
in the
just
96th
trying to
percentile
imagine
athletes.
Tyreek Hill versus Cooper DeJean, and I'm just seeing Tyreek Hill just cook him in the first 5 yards,
Well,
and then it's over, and then the GM looks around the room. He's like, "Who allowed this?
Whoa, whoa!
Who greenlit this?"
What makes you think that Cooper DeJean's going to get blown off the line by Tyreek Hill? What
I don't
makes
know.
you think that?
I don't know. It's just a hunch.
What analysis?
It's a hunch.
What analysis
This is radio,
are you-
baby. This is a hunch. I'm gonna say I like Tyreek Hill in the matchup against Cooper DeJean. I'm gonna take Tyreek in that one.
Man, going out on a limb on that one.
Yeah, I know. I know, but that's who he's gonna be guarding.
Well, listen, too. He was a 96th percentile athlete.
What about
Very-
Cooper Kupp? Do you think he could guard Cooper Kupp?
Huh?
You think he would
Do you
lock
think
Cooper
he'd be able to
Kupp
guard
up?
Cooper Kupp?
He'd lock Cooper Kupp up, wouldn't he?
I think he'd match up better.
Very serious sports talk show.
Cooper DeJean versus Trenton Irwin.
I'll take Cooper on that one. I'll take Cooper DeJean on that one. I'm just saying, like, could you imagine if the Bengals would have drafted him with that pick? This fan base would have crumbled.
Well, I'm not saying they should have drafted him. I'm
That's
saying
good.
he has a first-round grade. I think he's very, very good. He also provides you with that extra little bit of special teams play, special teams, special players, and whatever. Go, whatever that guy's name is. He's really good. I think he's a difference maker. He's single-handedly won games for Iowa. He's really good. I like Cooper DeJean a lot. I think that's a guy you could trade up for. Donnie Mitchell's another guy. We talked about him.
Yeah.
With
He's hurt a
Brooks.
lot, though.
He was hurt a lot.
He's hurt a lot. Yeah, like
But he
guys
fits
out
the
all the
profile.
time. But when he was on the field, he was great. But again, he was hurt. Like that's the difference between Mims and him. Like Mims sat for a minute. That's why he didn't get a chance to play. And then when he did get his chance to play, he had some minor injuries that he got banged up from time to time, and that's why he didn't have as many starts. A.D. Mitchell was starting as a freshman. Like he was playing. And then he ended up getting to where he just continuously would kind of get nicked up. I love A.D. Mitchell. I'm just going to say it out loud, though. That's a risky pick.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the receivers, he was like my 5th receiver on my board. I like his profile a lot. I think he is a perfect replacement for T in the future. Kool-Aid McKinstry is another guy, corner from Alabama, played opposite side of Terrion Arnold and was really, really good. I mean, he has way better statistical metrics than Terrion Arnold, but Arnold was going against number 1s. Kool-Aid was going up against number 2s. So take that with what you will. I like Kool-Aid McKinstry. And if not for his play, but for his name, that's a pretty awesome name to have on your team. Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon, probably the most. He's the most technically sound center in the class, and he's also probably the most smart center in the class. I think he would be a great addition on your offensive line. He could compete against Volson day 1, and you solidify your offensive line for the next 5 years with that pick. I have a couple others. I don't know if any of you all have thoughts before I get into any other picks.
I will say this for Bengals fans. If you look at the history of what Zach Taylor has drafted in day 2, round 2nd and 3. He's had 10 picks. I think you can look at 7 of them and say that they were hits. A great portion of this team has been made up in day 2. So I'm looking at these are the 10 picks that Zach Taylor has drafted. Last year, DJ Turner, Jordan Battle. I think both those are pretty good players. Those guys are going to start on this team. They're going to start for years to come. Cam Taylor-Britt the year before that. Great pick. Number 1 cornerback. Zach Carter, that one's an old swing and a miss. 2021, 2 swing and misses from old Zach Taylor. Jackson Carman and Joseph Asai. Casey's not ready to give up on Joseph Asai. It's year 4 of his career. I think maybe we should.
He had a good year 3. Give him a break.
2020, T. Higgins, Logan Wilson. 2019, Jermaine Pratt. And, of course, our Lord and Savior, Drew Sample. So I would say at least 6 or 7 of them have been huge additions to this team. This is where the Bengals have drafted very well. It's a big reason why the Bengals are where they're at right now is day 2. And we got 3 picks. We got 3 picks today. I don't know how Casey feels. I don't know what you Bengals fans feel. I want a pass catcher, an interior lineman, and a cornerback. If we get those 3, feels pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically with you. I feel like the combination of receiver, interior pass rusher, and maybe corner or interior offensive line. I think you couldn't go wrong either way, to be honest with you. At this point in the draft, you're looking at CB4. So, I mean, would you rather have a replacement for Volson? Or would you rather have a guy that may or may not see the field depending on injuries, whatnot?
Fair enough.
I don't know. It depends on what you would rather have there, what's going to fall to them. A lot of offensive linemen went early, but a lot of the interior guys are still there. So there might be some value for the Bengals there. For me, personally, they have 3 picks, but I think there's the guys at the top of this draft, especially Johnny Newton. You gotta package up 49 and 97, the pick that we just miraculously got from the gods of football. That thank God for Jesse Bates leaving Cincinnati, I guess. That we got from that, and you just go up and get a guy that could be a huge difference maker. Johnny Newton would send this grade for this draft from a B to an A+, 100%.
All right.
So Newton, you heard it here first.
Isaac
Maybe
Newton.
that's the reason as to why Jesse Bates really needed to leave. It was because nobody knew they needed a Newton. We'll talk about it when we come back on 1410 Wing AM.
It's something funny.
You're funny.
What? What?
Is this the last segment?
Yes.
All right. That's what I was waiting for. But instead, no one can see on camera what actually happens. But Elliot just puts his face down. Like, I don't know what he's looking at, but he always gives me the clock like this. I don't know why you do that, but. All right, we are back. Right before the weekend starts, at least for us. I think Kev is out today. Kenner is in. So it's not Kenner and Kev. So I guess it's just Kenner. The Browns, he's a Browns fan. They didn't even get a chance to pick, did they?
No, they picked 54.
They don't believe in first-round picks, I don't think, do they? Like, the more I think about it, when was the last time the Browns made a first-round pick? We know? I don't even know.
I don't know.
I don't pay attention to the Browns a whole lot, but more and more I think about it.
It's been a few years.
Did you pull that up, Reader?
I'm pulling it up.
I don't know when the last time the Browns had a first-round pick, but when they did, boy, they got it
They
right.
have not selected in the first 2 rounds each of the last 2 drafts.
Nice.
In 2021, they selected Greg Newsome the second.
And a good pick. Pretty good
That was
pick.
a pretty
Yeah,
good
he's a
pick.
dog.
Pretty good pick. Good for the Browns. It's almost like if they could draft, in the first, second round,
Maybe they'd be good.
they'd be really good. But instead, they got Johnny Manziel.
They needed Johnny.
They got Johnny Manziel.
They needed Johnny. We do have breaking news.
We do?
Oh, yeah. The Reds Community Fund.
Wow, this is going to be good.
They have tweeted out something. Shout out to Drew Garrison. He sent this very important breaking news to me. This is the tweet. I'm going to read it verbatim.
Please.
Ever wonder what it would be like to ride along in Redzilla? Here's your chance. Early bird split the pot pool prize is live now through May 2nd. Enter now for a chance to win a ride-along experience of a lifetime in Redzilla.
Wait, so you have to win Split the Pot to be able to win the ride in Ridezilla?
It's the early bird
Redzilla.
prize, yeah.
Do you split Redzilla? Is
I'm
that it?
confused. It's the early bird prize. Does that mean like if you purchase tickets early, you get to go? I need clarity.
It's not very clear.
need
I read
clarity.
it verbatim. I
I understand that you read it verbatim. The way that I read that, the way that I heard it was that if you purchase Split the Pot tickets now, you get a chance to.
Maybe that's what it is.
You
Maybe
get a
that's what it
chance,
is.
or you get to ride Redzilla. I don't know what it is.
Maybe that's what it is. That could be it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
if it's not broken down.
I'm going to put my name in the hat, and I'm going to get in that thing, and I'm going to crash it into the left field wall.
I don't think they're gonna let you drive it, Elliot. To be fair.
Are they going to stop me? Who's going to stop me? Gapper? You don't think I can beat out Gapper for that?
I know who's not going to stop you is Cooper DeJean.
That's correct. He's not.
He's not stopping anybody, according to Elliot.
I don't think that's a slanderous.
Because Iowa football was so bad defensively.
I don't think that was a slanderous take. I thought that was a fair take. I think this.
It was a horrible take. I think he's a great player.
I think he's a great player in the third round. A great player.
Third round.
Third round.
What are you crazy?
Let me ask you this. What would have happened last night had the Bengals taken him with that 18th pick? What would have happened? And I would have told you what would have happened. It would have been riots in the streets.
I don't think so. There's riots in the streets now on Mims.
That's true. You're right. You're right about that. There was going to be
riots in the streets no matter what.
There was going to be overreaction no matter what.
I think that there's a certain population that would have said it was a stretch, and that might be true, but it's not like I don't think it's far fetched to think that he wasn't going to be a first round pick. He's definitely going in the second round.
Yeah,
100%.
He's going in the top 10 in
So-
the second round here.
Yeah, I mean, he's borderline first-round pick. Speaking of that, this is more like nerd talk here. When you trade up to get a first-round pick, you keep that fifth-year option for multiple picks, right? Like, if you draft someone in the first-round period, you get that fifth-year option.
That's correct.
So maybe I'm being naive and stupid here, but why don't more teams like try to trade up just for that reason alone?
Well, that's what the Panthers did last night. They didn't want to stay at 33. They wanted to get that fifth-year option with Xavier Legette. So you trade up one spot just to get that fifth-year option. First-round picks are valuable, very valuable. If you look at the chart, the drop-off from 32 to 33 is like almost half in terms of value, point-wise. So first-round picks are immeasurable.
We're going to get right back. I have to add the stat.
Please.
And I'm not going to bring race into it. But
I hope not.
I wouldn't. But can you tell me who the last white cornerback was to start in an NFL game?
Yes, I do. He played for the Seahawks, and what was his name? Sean. Am I right? Sean.
No. The last
Jason Sehorn.
Jason Sehorn.
It is
That's
not
it.
Jason Sehorn. It is. He played for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2003. This is a name I've never heard of in my entire life. Kevin Casevahern. Kevin Casevahern. He played from 2001 to 2003 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Just an interesting little nugget.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say it's not hard to look at the guy's measurables and be like, "Wow, yeah, he's really good. He's a really good football
No, you can
player."
say that 100%.
Yeah.
I'm just putting the fact in.
And like
It's
I
been
said,
21 years.
like I said, you could also put him at safety if he doesn't work out at corner.
Correct.
And there's
Yeah.
plenty of great.
But having said that, if you think that he's going to go to Reed's point, if you think that he's going to fit more as a safety than a corner, then his value obviously is what many teams would consider far less. Yeah?
Yeah.
You're not selecting a safety in the top 10 picks of the second round.
Right, but he provides you that safety blanket, I guess, is what I'm
Gotcha.
getting.
You're saying worst case scenario, you have him as a safety.
Yeah.
Who would draft a guy before the 40th pick as a safety? Certainly not our Cincinnati Bengals. Certainly not the. What about the Los Angeles Rams not having a first-round pick during Sean McVay's entire tenure? That was
Is that right?
Until
That
you
was
miss.
his first ever overall pick, or first-round pick.
Unreal.
So Sean McVay, their last first-round pick was Jared Goff. That's how long it's been.
That's insane, dude.
They haven't had one since before
crazy.
Patrick Mahomes was in the league.
It's crazy. They got an edge rusher, right? I don't know who they got. Was it Jared Verse? Did they get Jared Verse?
I don't know.
I think it was.
Well, you probably dig it up on the World Wide Web. All right. Yeah, I got to be honest. Like, I think the draft is fun and it's glorious, but after the first 10 picks, for me, it becomes very much like, oh, that's a good pick, maybe. And the first 10 picks are like that as well, but we obviously have a lot more opinions on it. I do think that there's going to be like this this evolution in the NFL draft where at some point teams are going to start to like figure out which teams value draft picks a significant amount, and maybe they already do this to a certain extent, and then they're gonna like start not partnering, but they're gonna like say, hey, we know that the Seahawks are gonna be suckers for trading us, 3 picks in the back end of this draft for us to move up 10 spots. We don't really care about the 4th, 5th, and 6th round picks ever. I think that there's some justification in that. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because how often does a 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick hit, and does it hit enough to justify the idea of not moving up 10, 15 spots to get the guy you ultimately really want?
Yeah, I mean, they don't hit often. I
don't.
think the good teams, when they hit on those, they're really, like, good. Like, think of the Rams and how good they've been. They've been hitting on 4th and 5th and 6th round guys for a long time now. That's the only reason why they've been relevant without their 1st and 2nd round picks for as long as they've been. So,
Yeah, the Rams had 13 picks last year in the draft. No first-round picks. These are all 2nd to 7th, and they had like 3 in the 6th and 3 in the 7th. And every single one of those guys but one played at least 8 games last year. All of them. The only one that didn't was Stetson Bennett. Shout out Stetson Bennett.
That's right. Hopefully
He's okay. Hopefully
What
he
round was
gets back.
Puka?
Puka was 5th.
that can be the difference. Now, but I agree with you. Like, if you're looking at the Bengals, who've notoriously not really hit those in this era, in this Joe Burrow era, I would be looking to maybe trade some of those picks just to move up to get a guy that you think will be a starter because you haven't been able to prove otherwise.
Most pressing need for the Bengals.
Well, they have one starting position. So there's 22 starters, right? They have one spot that's still unrequited. That still needs to be filled, and that's a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
So they've got one spot.
Yeah, and plus if you're really wanting to get down to the nitty gritty, it's a nose tackle. Like Jer'zhan Newton's not a nose tackle, so they'd still probably need a guy to draft later on. Like maybe Tavondre Sweat falls far enough into day 3 to where you just pick him in the 4th or the 5th round. Other than that, you're looking at like a 6th or 7th round pick to fill in that spot. So yeah, I mean, there's not very many holes on the roster. There's a lot of depth pieces though that we need to acquire.
Right.
There's plenty of options for receivers, interior offensive linemen, corner. The cornerback 4, I just looked this up, for the Bengals has played and on average in the Zach Taylor era 800 snaps per season. So it's maybe that's more important than we think. Maybe a Cooper DeJean would be more valuable to the Bengals than Elliott. Let
me ask you this. If Byron Murphy or Dallas Turner had fallen, if the Vikings didn't trade up to get Dallas Turner, would we have drafted Dallas Turner or Byron Murphy there?
We would have drafted Byron Murphy.
I think we would have drafted Byron Murphy, yeah. I don't know about Dallas Turner because, like I said, like edge rusher, if it hits, right, if it hits, it hit. It's fantastic. It's amazing and everything like that. But, like, it just seemed like, man, we just drafted a edge rusher last year. We've already got 3 edge rushers that should start. Like, plus, it just seemed like we didn't need to do it.
Dallas Turner wasn't even the first edge rusher taken. It was Layoff Tulatu.
You're right.
But I think Byron Murphy, he went to the Seattle Seahawks.
2 picks for us, right.
That was the other guy in contention with Amarius Mims by the time it got down to that pick. If you listen to the press conference, it feels like they were all in on Mims. They were thinking about trading up to go get him to secure him. So
there's a listen for the long list of cons that everyone wants to talk about Mims. There's a lot of pros too. It fits. Yeah. It fits the mold that they're trying to do. Big size, high ceiling. You get a tackle, which I think we all would like. Yeah. Instead of having a revolving door. He's the most athletic tackle that the Bengals have ever drafted on top of his size being big. Like all those things are check. It's just on the other end, we haven't drafted offensive tackle well. We haven't done projects very well. And yeah, there's a lot of cons. Injuries, obviously. So we'll see. It's just we'll see.
This is it for Frank Pollock, though, right? Like,
If he can't get it done, yeah.
If this doesn't work, whatever term you'd like to use there, I don't know what work actually means at the end of it all, but if it doesn't seem semi-successful, there's going to be a fall guy. It feels like there has to be a fall guy, and I'm not trying to suggest that for a single second that Frank Pollock deserves to be the fall guy. Maybe he does a perfect job, and it just turns out that he's unlucky, and these guys continue to fall by the wayside, and they don't become what the Bengals ultimately thought they were going to be. But Frank Pollock is now, I would say, on the hot seat.
Yeah,
In a good or bad way, it can go either way.
You use the term fall guy. I don't think that's what it is at all. Like if this guy doesn't, if Mims doesn't turn out to be a good tackle, he's not the guy that's just the scapegoat. He is absolutely he's the problem. And at least that's what it seems like, right? Like that wouldn't be the fall guy. That would be, this is a problem. Let's move on.
All right. Well, for those that are listening on 1410 Wing AM, you're going to have the lovely voice of Justin Kenner in your ears here in just a moment. But for all of us at Off the Bench, we appreciate you listening to us. We come your way every single day from 1P to 3P right there on the radio dial. I don't know if you turn the radio dial, if you got a digital dial, you listen on iHeartRadio, the internet. But for all those that maybe want to watch the rest of the show, you can do that on Chatterbox Sports YouTube. And until Monday, take care and enjoy your weekend, everybody. All right. On the internet, where all the magic happens.
Bump, 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 bump. I love the internet.
Do you think that there's do you think that there's any chance? Do you think that there's any chance that the Bengals take another tackle deep in the draft, just like a long shot?
They might.
If it's the best offensive lineman available that has possibly some versatility, then yes, I would say that's an option for them.
Brooks Austin said it best. If you look at all of the positions that you can play in football, the one position that is almost exclusively hit in the first round is tackle. Like DeJuan Jones is the 4th round pick, but you look at all the All-Pros, all the Pro Bowls, almost unanimously they are taking first round. But you're right. I think if you get a flex piece late in the draft, that's someone that's just a depth piece. Yeah, I think the Bengals would go after that.
All right, for programming notes for next week, we will be back on the airwaves and on the old YouTube on Monday. The following Monday, though, after Monday would be Tuesday, if you keep track of the days of the week. Tuesday through that following Friday, we are going to be in here making some adjustments around the studio, trying to I don't know what we want to call it. Revamp, maybe, instead of rebrand. But we're going to try to do some things around the studio that allows us this summer to push on and continue to do shows each and every single day, because we like doing shows each and every single day. But unfortunately, with all the different things that we do in the summers, and couple that with the fact of Chatterbox Reds, et cetera, we're going to kind of make things a little more unique, per se. Some are asking, should the desk stay? I don't know.
You don't like the desk?
It's not that I don't like the desk. I just I want it to be a little more casual, personally. Yeah. I feel like Ron Burgundy up here.
Don't need a traditional.
By the way, what are some of the top? This is gonna be impossible to do right off the top of our heads, but top five off the bench clips of all time in my mind. 100% was the Tom Brenneman. I think it was Everett who put it in the chat, but anyway. Tom, who's getting ready to be on dialed in here just a moment, so don't go anywhere. He literally Ron Burgundy himself asking who Ron Burgundy was.
He was like, "I'm Ron Burgundy."
Yeah,
literally did that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was a fantastic clip, but I don't remember if there were some other great ones. So, yeah.
I'm Ron.
We need a new intro too. We need a lot of things. New intro. Maybe some people in the chat can chime in. What are some things we can do differently besides run a really good sports talk show? Blackmore, by the way, you've never had a bigger fan than Blackmore. Just so you know.
Listen, Blackmore is the thing. Yeah. I love Blackmore. He's got my back. Randy G, Blackmore, Chad Waits used to be a Team Reed guy. Listen, the Team Reed coalition.
Bronco was
the Team Reed coalition. We're few, but we are a proud bunch, and I appreciate all of you guys. Spread love, not hate.
Mr. Mo wants new ads.
New ads.
Let me work on
Maybe
that.
I could get Mr. Mo to come in and sell some ads.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea.
That would be good.
If you guys wanna look back at 2023's draft grades, last year's draft grades, they gave the Detroit Lions a C.
Yeah.
What a joke.
They said, Jahmyr Gibbs, what are we doing? Sam Laporta, bad pick.
That's my point. It's a
right,
joke.
right. And then they gave the Houston Texans a B. And as we know, the Houston Texans
What a
hit
joke.
almost universally on that one. I'm trying to see if they gave someone a good grade that just wasn't a good draft. But we're also a year out, so
What'd they give the Panthers?
the Panthers they gave a B plus.
There you go. I mean,
Hey,
you couldn't
that's-
possibly you couldn't like. I couldn't imagine being a Panthers fan watching the abysmal season that you had last year, and then just the Bears have 2 top 10 picks. Like the Bears legitimately got the number 1 overall pick because of you.
Yeah. What a deal for them.
And the crazy thing is can't you put some stipulations in there too? Like, don't you think you would have gotten some kind of like the Jets and the Packers? The Jets were like, hey, we're not going to give you a first-round pick because if this guy gets hurt, you're not getting our first-round pick. You get a second-round pick. Well, that ended up working out for the Jets. I feel like the Panthers could have been like, there's a caveat here. We're going to make the trade. You get our first-round pick if it's within the top 10 picks of the draft or 5 picks of the draft. We're keeping it. You get our first-round pick in 2025. I feel like they might have done that. Like, because then you're like, well, they're probably not going to have a top 5 pick. No?
I don't know if they would have accepted it, but I mean,
What
part of
makes
the-
matters worse for them too? It's not just that Bryce Young doesn't. And again, Bryce Young's young, no pun intended. And on top of that, they're not very good. So I don't want to say you're going to act like Bryce Young's a bust because I don't think that's very fair
I think
at
he's
all.
a bust.
You think he's a bust?
Personally, I believe Bryce Young is going to be and already is one of the biggest busts we've ever seen. I
He's
think a
already
bust.
going up against a big hill. I mean, he's undersized.
He's so small, man.
He's
It's
small. Has
I'm
some
not
injury
suggesting,
issues.
but my main point is that not only did you miss on that possibly, but you traded your first-round pick for the following year. And the worst thing of all of those things, because if that's not bad enough, is that the guy that got drafted next looks like he's on pace maybe just to be a Hall of Famer. Now, I know that's a little over-exaggeration, but you couldn't have possibly looked better than C.J. Stroud in your first year in the NFL. So, of all of those
Yeah.
things, like that's just
That's a good take.
that's striking out is what you call it.
Was
3
the-
strikes and you're out.
3 strikes and you're out. Was there any criticism on Caleb Williams last night? I didn't see too much of it. If there was,
I didn't see any
like
criticism.
anything like I saw one thing. I saw he was dancing too much.
Yeah, he was dancing a lot, and
That's the one obscure criticism I found.
He broke the Fanatics record for the
Did
most jerseys sold, #1 jersey sold.
That's because they're
Other night.
starving in Chicago.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you
This,
couldn't.
the Chicago Bears have never had a quarterback throw for 30 touchdowns. They've never had a
crazy.
quarterback throw for 4,000 yards.
Is
Never.
that-
It's
that's
the
like a-
oldest franchise in the NFL. Never. Jay Cutler is their best quarterback ever. Jay Cutler. That's crazy. How is that possible? How can you not just luck into one?
That's unacceptable.
I think you do
Caleb
luck
is.
into one. I do think you do luck into one, but then there are times where you're so incompetent as a franchise, it doesn't matter who you have in there. And the Browns have proved that. I mean, you couldn't have possibly had that laundry list of names that are on the back of those Browns uniforms that those poor people wear to not think to yourself that the Browns didn't cause most of that. You can't have that many quarterbacks come in. This is like Frank Pollock, same idea. You can't have this many guys
No doubt.
come into the offensive line room and swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss, swing and miss. It can't possibly be because you just drafted a bunch of bums. There's got to be more to it.
I don't think the Bengals get enough credit for like the last 3 quarterbacks we have taken like to be our franchise guys have worked out.
Yeah.
Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton, Joe Burrow. Like they've all worked out. And I don't think we get enough credit for that. Other teams are drafting dudes every 3 years, every 4 years, and here we are. We've drafted 3 and 20, and it's been because we had Carson Palmer for a decade, Andy Dalton for a decade.
Andy Dalton was a great pick.
They were Carson Palmer was a great pick. Like that was,
Yeah, but that was Carson Palmer was picked what one of
he's one of one.
one. Yeah, I mean, no disrespect, but when you get to pick one of one and you hit, that's good. I'm not saying it's not good, but there's a little asterisk there.
I mean, there's a lot of teams that
Do we want to give the Colts credit for picking Andrew Luck? Like the Bengals didn't have an option
The
with
Colts,
Joe Burrow.
the Colts, yeah, I'll give the Colts credit because they very much traded away Peyton Manning, who was a Hall of Famer, to get that pick. Like they gave up on They said, hey, we're not going to do this Peyton Manning thing anymore. We want to get Andrew Luck. Yeah.
But when they actually had the first pick,
They had to get it. They had to. They tanked. They deliberately tried to get Andrew Luck. So like it wasn't like they lucked into, like, pun intended. Like they went after it.
My point is that when you go to draft the guy, though, you have a decision to make. I'm not going to give them credit for making an unbelievably great decision when everyone else said that that's the person they were supposed to pick. My point is this: I'm not giving
had a decision.
Mike Brown
Stick with Peyton
and
Manning.
Zach Taylor credit for drafting Joe Burrow when we could have rounded up me, you, and Elliott and went down there to Paul Brown and done the exact same thing.
There was a coalition that said take Chase Young. There was a lot of people say take Chase Young.
No, there was no doubt about Joe Burrow. I mean,
wait a minute. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
where I'm just not a part of Bengal fandom.
Oh,
enough
yeah.
here. You're telling me.
Oh, yeah.
That there was what was it? Was it? And I love Tom, but it was basically Tom and the Buckeye fans, or what?
There was a saying, because you don't know what you're going to get with Joe Burrow. Go get the for sure franchised edge rusher. Go get Chase Young.
It was a small portion, but they were loud.
They were
loud, and they were very demanding.
Very quiet right now, but very loud.
Yeah, where are they at now?
Yeah,
Is Chase Young even in the? I mean, is he even gonna? I know he's with 49ers, but is he?
He's with a different team now. I don't know what team
Yeah,
it is,
he's
but-
bouncing around like hot potato.
what
he
about the
got paid,
Ravens?
like-
What about the Ravens? I think they're going to be a threat this year.
They always
I don't know,
are.
they lost.
They always are.
What
Yeah,
about the
yeah,
Raiders,
but-
really quickly though? The Raiders. They
The
have
Raiders
two tight
just
ends now.
Back-to-back tight ends.
Makes me
I'm
so
not.
upset.
I'm not happy with the Raiders. I'm very disappointed.
What are you, a
My-
Raiders fan?
No, I'm not. My heart got shattered when they took Brock Bowers.
Oh, you thought he was going to go to 18? That's
No,
living-
I didn't. It's just a very slither of me was like maybe, but a lot of me accepted the fact that we're probably not going to get Brock Bowers. And then the Raiders took him, and yeah, that was
Who's
that.
throwing him the ball, by the way? Elliott?
Aiden O'Connell. Jimmy G. No,
Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew.
Minshew.
Gardner Minshew.
They have two elite tight ends, and they literally have a garbage bag as a quarterback.
Gardner Minshew was
Gardner
fine.
Minshew.
Gardner Minshew was good last year.
Gardner Minshew.
He was good last year.
Gardner Minshew is the guy that you're happy is your backup. You're like,
Sounds to me like they're going for that number 1 pick next year, maybe. They won some football games last year, though, to be
They
fair.
won 8 games. Yeah. People always laugh at the West.
And they got
West
a
has some good
defensive line
teams.
now. They got a pretty scary defensive line with Christian Wilkins and Max Crosby. It's
Who's
pretty tough.
here? You go, Trace.
Yeah, what's up?
Prediction. Who's going to be the most improved team next year?
Ooh.
The Bears.
You think it's going to be the Bears? Okay. They won what? 7 games? 6 games?
I
They
thought
didn't
it
win
was 6.
7, did they?
No?
I'll check.
Yeah, they'll check.
You think it's the Bears? You think they're going to be the
Bears
over/under
won
is
7.
8.5 wins right
They
now?
won 7?
They won 7.
Oh, then that's not the Bears. Who is it?
Here are some of the teams.
Commanders. Commanders what won
Give me-
2
give me-
games?
Falcons?
How many of the Commanders win?
4.
How many of the Falcons win?
7. I think it's going to be the Chargers, right? I mean, 5 wins.
Oh yeah, Chargers. Yeah.
Yeah.
But by the way, did you
That's
hear
injury
that rumor that teams reached out to the Chargers
Oh, yeah.
asking if Herbert was available? The Vikings did. Somebody else did too, and the Chargers were like, "Nah, we ain't trading Justin Herbert." That's the right call. But I think it would have been interesting if the Bears and the Chargers.
What are
just
the
swapped.
top 4 that we can get on the list for a chat
That'd be
pool
wild.
question here as we wrap up and dialed in with Tom Brenneman is about to begin here just in a moment. You have are we directing folks like immediately after? Is that a thing or no?
I will be.
All right, I'll let you work on that now. But let's work on the dream team here outside of Casey. Let's work on four names, right?
Okay.
You have
Chargers?
I guess the Chargers, yes.
Chargers.
What about
I think,
how many wins the Cardinals have? They have Murray back.
That's a good one. The Cardinals won 4 games last year.
Yeah.
The Cardinals are. I like Kyler Murray a lot.
Yep. So Kyler Murray, they just got Marvin.
Yep. So we'll put the Cardinals on there.
how'd the Broncos do last year?
The Broncos are going to be terrible.
What
this
were the
year.
Steelers' record?
The Steelers won 10 games.
Yeah,
They
Steelers
win-
did. Steelers
how
were
do they
pretty
do
good last
this?
That's a good question, Trace. We don't know.
We
We're
don't
not
know.
aware. We're not aware.
I didn't see the Steelers winning more than 6 games last year. I was shook.
Commanders won 4 games. We can put the other
I
Commanders
think
on
Commanders
there.
should be on there.
Jets bounce back.
Yeah. How many
I
did they
don't
win?
know.
They had 7.
They had 7 wins last year.
They could get 9.
They could
But
get
is that
more
the
than
biggest
9. They could
comeback,
get
though?
10. It's about how many extra wins you have this year versus last year, right? So I mean, yeah. if you're
Panthers
the-
had 2. Cardinals had 4. Chargers had 5.
Why do
Commanders
we
had
feel like the Panthers have no hope? Is it just because? I don't know. Is it?
I don't know.
They
I think
paid
the
$100 million to an offensive guard that's
they've got a
not
lot
even
of
top
holes.
15
A lot of
in the league.
problems.
Fired their coach midway through last year.
They're just a
Quarterback didn't
miserable
look good at
franchise
all.
right now.
Chicago Bears over under 8.5 wins. Trace,
I'm gonna go under.
you need to go under 500. Okay.
I'm gonna go under as well.
I'm going over. I think they'll get 9 wins. Chicago Bears this year.
Okay. I'm trying to find some other spicy ones. My favorite team, the New England Patriots, 4.5 wins.
I'm going
under.
over.
You're going over.
They got a good quarterback.
Under.
I feel comfortable going under.
If Jets
4.5
are
for the
improving, that means they're
Yeah, that's a tough division.
Yeah, it's-
because
you're not-
even the Bills losing everything, they're still going to be good. Like,
you're
they're
not
still gonna
you're
be
not
able-
winning. You're not winning games.
I'm trying to find some other ones that are fun.
Falcons, I think, win more than 7 games. I think they win that division.
Yeah.
What's there? Is that 7? Is
Yeah.
their line 7.5? Their line's 9.5.
Oh my God!
Yeah, Falcons are 9.5.
That's probably right
many
at the
wins did
sweet
Tampa
spot.
have?
I think it is. I take the under.
9.
But it's right there.
Okay. All right. Do me a favor as we wrap this show up. Please hang around. I know Casey's trying to figure out how to maybe redirect you to the next stream, this stream, that stream. Just hang around the channel. Tom and Dialed In with Tom Brenneman will be on within the next few minutes. Now, whether or not we have some kind of pretty graphic to have in front of it to showcase that he's coming on here shortly, I don't know if we have that, to be honest. It is beautiful outside, though, today. So I do hope you enjoy your weekend. And this has been it for me on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. And I am very thankful for all of you, as I always say. Please hit the like button. Subscribe if you've not done that yet. Share the channel. And then give Brooke Austin some love. Came on the air. I know many of you probably thought he was talking about Georgia Bulldogs. Well, he covers Georgia. But he did. I thought he had some insightful things to say about Mims. So thank you for him for coming on the show. And as always, we'll be back better than ever on Monday. Hang around. Dialed In with Tom Brenneman coming up next.